Start of the season Commentators podcast with myself, JB, CW, Chris Whiteman, of course, and Russ Vernon, and hopefully we'll have our new commentator once he's Harni, Mike Harniman. Hopefully we'll have him on a bit later, and he's having one or two technical issues as well. So without further ado, what's going to happen is basically each and every one of us commentators are going to predict our top 7, where they're going to finish, and we're going to predict bottom 5. So that's part of our predictions, and obviously we're going to talk about our individual teams. In mine and Chris's case, Burnley; in Russ's case, Leeds, and a bit of the Championship as well. So Championship fans, don't fear, we'll have your back covered on that as well. And hopefully if Mike's on, we'll talk a little bit about Arsenal and their new signing, Nicolas Pepe as well. But without further ado, let me introduce to you first of all Chris Whiteman to the scene. Good evening, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back on a JB live stream.
It sure is. And Russ, good evening to you. Russ Vernon.
Good evening, JB. Good evening, CW. Hope you're both doing well, and I'm glad to be on with you both.
Yeah, likewise, Rusty, and of course we'll have Mike with us later. So what we're going to do is get straight into the predictions first. What I'm going to do is ask each and every one of the guys tonight for their top 7 to start with. So we're going to go around the group. I should say we're all in different parts of the country tonight. I'm in Burnley. Russ is in Yorkshire. In fact, he's in Rotherham to be exact. And Chris, obviously, is based, although he comes from Burnley, he's based down in Colchester, just outside London. And Mike, when Harni comes on, he's based just outside London. He's in, I think it's Boreham Wood, I think, something like that. Stevenage, I think he's from. So we're all from different parts of the country, and we've all come together to share our beautiful love of football, and that's why we're all here. And this is your commentary team for the coming season, everybody, on the JB Claret YouTube channel. So what we're going to do first of all is ask for our top 7 from the Premier League, and one at a time. So and the reasons as to why, and then we're gonna choose our bottom 5 next up, and then obviously we'll go to the individual team. So we'll get cracking on the top 7, and I hope you all got your predictions ready. We're going to start with Chris, and what about you then, Chris? What do you think about the top 7? Oh, just before you do, Chris, I should also say, if you want to put your opinion, if any listeners that are on Twitch tonight or on YouTube later on, when we put that up there, leave a comment, and if you're on YouTube, be sure to put your predictions in the comment section below. Okay, Chris, we're gonna throw the door open to you. What do you think? How do you, based on what you've seen and what you've seen in the transfer window, who do you think, in your own heart of hearts, is going to finish in the top 7 this year, and in what order?
Or are we just going to go like starting 7th, and then everyone goes around and does 7th, or do you want my entire top 7 at once?
Well, top 7 at once would be fantastic, and you can do
top 7 at once. Well, I'll start with 7th, and I'll let Russ then go with who he thinks he's finished 7th.
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine.
I'll build the suspense a little bit. So 7th, this is good. I'm gonna throw the cat amongst the pigeons straight away, and say Man United in 7th. So I don't feel like that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has enough experience as a manager. Full stop. The Pogba scenario is not great. It's a bit of a joke, really, and I just feel like they haven't done anything really worthy in the transfer market that's going to give them the edge. I mean, they didn't really do anything last year. Their best achievement was PSG, beating PSG in the Champions League, whilst all of their nearest rivals around them were in cup finals and winning. Manchester City won all of the domestic competitions, whereas Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool and Spurs all competed in European cup finals. So 7th for me. It's just United, I feel like the Lukaku scenario, is he going to stay as well because the sale keeps on tripping over itself? Whether he brings some youth through, I mean, they've been doing all right pre-season wise. Obviously, they played Russ's team in Australia, which is a bit of an eyebrow raiser as a friendly. I don't think any Man U Leeds match will ever be friendly, but they're kids. But it's not really. I just feel like he's being thrown in at the deep end for his first full season, and I just feel like he's going to struggle a little bit unless they pull off something in this last week of this transfer window, because this is currently the 1st of August at time of recording. So unless Manchester United pull off some worldy transfers, I've got them down in 7th. So I'll see what Russ thinks of that one.
Well, my prediction for 7th spot in the Premier League this season is Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think they're going to have a good season again, Wolves, but I think they'll miss out on the top 6. And I think the reason behind this is the European factor. I think if teams are in Europe, a bit like Man United were last season, and that in Europa League, that's going to make them struggle, and I think it's going to make Wolves struggle. I think they're going to finish 7th. They've got some good quality players in the side: Otter, Jimenez, Moutinho, Neves, Conor Cody, Patricio as well, which will keep them in and around the top 6. But I think they'll just finish 7th. For me, they've lost Elder Costa. I thought had a very good championship campaign when they went up as champions, and they've also lost Steven Cavallero, who did well in that. They're putting some decent performances, but not one of the best performances in the games that they featured in last season in the Premier League for Wolves. And I think losing those 2 key players, I think is going to cost them a top 6 place this season. See what you think about that, JB.
John, are you alive? We need your 7th place, please.
I'm sorry. I haven't done this for such a long time, guys.
He's getting rusty. He's getting rusty. Come on, man.
Right. Also, I'm going to leave a link on my JB Claret YouTube channel, Facebook page for those who haven't got Twitch, but you can watch along. Right, my 7th place. I have to say, Wolves was a little bit left field, Russ, considering they've got Europa League. It depends how far they get, really. And I have to agree with Chris on this one, actually. I was going to actually go with Arsenal, considering that they haven't signed a defender. But with all this good news, I think they'll finish a bit higher than I thought. So with that in mind, and what Manchester United have done in the window, I'm going to have to say Manchester United, because, yeah, I agree with Chris to a certain extent, because Solskjaer, it's a big season for him, and he had that honeymoon period, didn't he, last year, and then it all went with a bit awry. Luckily, they finished high enough to finish in the top 6, thankfully, because they got the results earlier on in the season. I mean, they've spent a few quid. I mean, I think they spent something like £100 million. They bought Wan-Bissaka. I think he'll be a great addition, and in the future. He's nowhere near the finished article. They've bought in 1 or 2 extra good players, but they're not the sort of Manchester United signings you come to expect. You know, when you're Manchester United, you expect to sign big stars, and obviously they're not. And then there's the Paul Pogba issue: is he staying? Is he going? What's he going to do? Do Manchester United keep him? Do they cash in? Are they going to sell Lukaku? Because there's supposed to be, he's just deciding whether he may well be going as well. So, and then there's the issue of Jesse Lingard. He's been in the press this summer for all the wrong reasons, off the pitch. So it's not a United club, Manchester United, if you pardon the pun. And the problem with United is it's not the team. It's not a good team at the moment. Too many individuals. There's not enough team spirit, I don't think, at the club. And I think that's what's going to cost them ultimately. I mean, I think they'll be very fortunate to finish 7th, let alone 8th this year. But it all depends. If Solskjaer can mould them as a team, who knows? They might surprise one or two people, but I can't see it personally. So I'm going to have Manchester United to finish in 7th place. So we're now going to move on to 6th place, guys, and we're going to hand back to Chris again. Who do you think is going to finish above Manchester United, in your opinion, in 6th position?
Well, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So, Russ had them down as 7th. I've got them down as 6th. Wolves. I think, again, they've been doing good business this year. I just get that funny feeling. They had a fantastic year last year, and they've built on that this year so far. I know they've lost a couple of players, but that's expected with every shape up each season. And I just feel like, it depends on how they do in the Europa League. If they get a good run in the Europa League, it might distract them from the league. So we'll see how that goes. But provisionally, I've got them down as 6th. I just get that. There's a lot of positivity around Wolves right now. They're doing the right business all over the place, and it's just they don't hang back. And I just feel like their style of football, the way they are, it's just going to be interesting to watch. And I get the feeling that they're going to be. There's a lot of teams knocking on the door of the top 6, because quite frankly, I put Man United 7th, but they could quite easily finish even further behind if they're not careful. Because let's face it, that out of all the teams that are sort of high-end mid-table, Leicester could quite easily knock in there, and Everton have been not very shy of their transfer bins this season either. So any one of those 3 could really jump into the top 6. But I'm going to go with Wolves because I just feel like that they've got a good thing going there, and I just get the feeling that it's just going to carry on. And if they don't get distracted by the Europa League, because they've got quite a deep squad as well, they've got quite a lot of players. They should be able to cope domestically. I reckon they could break into that top 6. So all yours, Russ, I guess.
So, guys, for me, in my 6th position, I've gone with a team like you guys I've put in 7th, and that's Man United. And the reasoning behind that decision for Man United being in 6th, they've made some very shrewd acquisitions in Wan-Bissaka, one of the best right-backs, up-and-coming right-backs for England. He's also fetched in a top winger in Dan James, who was very close to joining Leeds in the January transfer window. But I think there's many rumours that Pogba could be leaving. Also, Lukaku, will he stay, will he go? There's talks that if Dybala doesn't agree to join Man United from Juventus, and he'll be staying at Old Trafford. Lukaku, because Juve can't afford to buy him outright. Inter may come back in for him, but they can't afford the price Man United are asking for at the moment. So it looks like Lukaku could end up staying. They've got Greenwood coming through the ranks as well. Look good in pre-season in the games I've seen so far. And I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will mould, fetching a few young team players, mould them all together. Pardon the pun, because that's the team he joined Man United from in Norway. So I think Man United will finish 6th this season and qualify for the Europa League once again. I don't know about you, JB. Who do you think will come 6th in the Premier League this season?
Well, guys, I'm going to go to Merseyside for my selection. I'm going to go Everton. I don't know. I like the look of them this season. I think, they deceived a little bit. They finished about 6th or 7th. I would have 7th or 8th. I think they finished last season. They finished behind Wolves, didn't they? I think they've made one or two shrewd buys. I think Marco Silva did okay. He had a bit of a sticky spot in the middle, but towards the end they were playing some really good stuff, and they absolutely thrashed Burnley at the back end of the season and could have won by 7 or 8, and that's no exaggeration. I think I think the players he's brought in, he's got money to spend. I honestly think Everton could have a really good season, to be quite honest, and I think they could do absolutely really well as regards that. So yeah, I'd certainly look at Everton being in there as well, as certainly top six material. I think they, on balance, I think they look more a team than Manchester United do. I can understand why you've gone for them in sixth place, Russ, with the signings they've made in Wan-Bissaka and one or two others. But I just think if you look at the whole round package as a squad and then as a team, I think Everton have just got that little bit more going for it than what Manchester United have, and that's probably going to be the difference where it's going to help Everton really. But as for Wolves, I think they'll just finish just outside the top seven. Funnily enough, in case anyone wanted to know that, I think they'll finish about 8th or 9th, just because of the Europa League and how grueling a schedule that does take when you're in it. Right, now 5th place now, and we're going to go back to Chris again. Who do you predict will finish 5th this season?
Well, again, this is where it gets even more interesting in terms of, big name. The names are getting bigger as you go up, and for 5th place, this might annoy a fellow commentator, but I've put Arsenal. So Mike, if he's listening whilst waiting for technical issues to be sorted, he's going to be slightly irritated with me, I'm sure. But 5th place for me. I know they've just signed Pepe before people start freaking out. Go, oh, Pepe, but he's going to score. They've still got a very leaky defence. They're a couple of centre backs away from properly contested. They'll fight for top 4. Don't get me wrong. They'll probably be in 4th place. In and out 4th place this season, but I just think they'll come up short in the long run, because I just feel defensively they're not as strong as what they need to be to finish 4th. And Pepe's a good signing. Obviously Aubameyang and Lacazette are solid forwards if they manage to get Özil back on form. Obviously Özil and Kolasinac having that run-in with a couple of motorcyclists robbers who foolishly tried to take on a giant Bosnian. It's not really, Kolasinac is a bit of a hero now, but they need to beef up their centre-back partnership, I feel. I mean, Leno's a good goalkeeper. I think he'll probably bail them out a few times, but there's only so much a goalkeeper can do on his own. They'll score plenty of goals, but I just feel like against the bigger teams in the division, they'll struggle to keep clean sheets, and I think that'll be why they end up finishing 5th. So, what about you, Russ?
Mike won't be happy with me either, CW. I've put Arsenal in 5th as well. Yes, they made a shrewd acquisition in signing Pepe and Ceballos as well for the forward line. But I know they could be gaining potential 2 signings in their backline, but with the squad as it is at the moment, they're going to score quite a lot of goals with the front line: Ceballos, Özil, Lacazette, Aubameyang, Pepe, and Ketia as well, one of the youth players who has been in and around the Arsenal first team squad the past couple of seasons, maybe 3 seasons now. But it's just that backline for me. I can't see him getting into that top 4. Yeah, they'll be in the top. Yeah, they'll be in 5th and just miss out on the top 4. And I think they'll miss out by a single point, or maybe even miss out due to goal difference. But I think Arsenal will struggle to get top 4 this season. I know, Mike, if you're listening, you may disagree with me and you're entitled to your opinion, but for me, I think Arsenal will finish 5th, and I still think you can have a good season, but I can't see you getting to that top 4 spot at the moment. JB, what about you?
Well, guys, Sorry, Mike. It's a hat trick for me. I've got a. It's a clean sweep for me. It's Arsenal. Again,
Oh,
similar,
great minds think alike.
similar reasons as to obviously to you, Ross, and to you, Chris. I just think. I just think at the end of the day, I just think they haven't got enough really. As I say, it probably boils down to the defence. Now, I'm not getting. Don't get me wrong. I think Nicolas Pepe coming to the team will add a lot more firepower. I think going forward they are a good side. I mean, I was at Turf Moor at the back end of the season along with Chris. We were watching Burnley against Arsenal, and I've never seen a player like Aubameyang run so quick over like 40, 50 yards. I mean, he could enter the 100 metres and win it hands down. You give Usain Bolt a run for his money. But in reality, I mean, they've more or less signed Tierney from Celtic. I think that'll be a good signing for them once that's confirmed. It's not been confirmed yet. But Pepe's a good signing, but I still think they need I think a couple of centre backs short. Maybe another backup keeper for Leno as well, especially with the amount of games they're going to be possibly playing if they get far in the Europa competition, which they got to the final last year. And obviously they're capable of winning one of the trophies. I think they're capable of winning the Europa or the FA Cup or the League Cup. I think they'll just miss out. I think the 4 teams above them, and we know which 4 they are, guys. It doesn't need a rocket scientist to work who the 4 are. I think all round we'll have much better squads and we'll have much better depth and a bit more experience. You can't criticise Arsenal's ambition in the transfer market. They did spend a lot of. They did fanny around all season trying to sign Will Saar, and obviously Palace wanted 90 odd million quid. I don't think he's worth 90 million pounds, by the way, Will Saar. I think Arsenal were fair enough to offer him 50, but obviously Palace weren't prepared for flogging for that. So they probably spent most of the summer messing around after him. But I think they'll do okay. I think they could possibly win a League Cup or an FA Cup maybe and have a run in the Europa. But I think probably they'll have a go at trying to challenge the likes of Chelsea and Tottenham for 4th, but getting that top 4, or the big 4, I should say, they're getting the top 4. But not for me. I think 5th place is going to be their limit this season. So now we're going to the Champions League. We're going to go into the Champions League. This is where it gets now deadly serious and the nitty-gritty starts coming in. I think we know which 4 that's going to be in that top 4, but what order is it going to be in? We're going to start with 4th place, and to kick us off, it's back to Chris.
I mean, are you sure you know? I mean, no, you're spot on. We all know what 4 teams we're talking about. So 4th place for me. I mean, I get the feeling we're probably all going to be on the same lines here. I've got Chelsea in 4th place, mainly because I feel like the squad that they have is the same as last season, barring Eden Hazard. I know Hazard's gone, but this Pulisic guy is looking pretty good. He's been looking very good pre-season wise. It's more or less the same team as last year, minus Hazard, as I just said. And I think Frank Lampard's going to invest in the youth. I mean, he hasn't got a choice, transfer embargo and everything. But for me, I feel like this season for Chelsea is they don't have much pressure on them in the sense that transfer embargo means that there's no new signings really to deal with. I mean, I think they signed that guy from Real Madrid on a permanent, but that was because they agreed that last season, so it's kind of just like ticking a box at the end. I forget his name. I think it was Kovacic. And apart from that, obviously it's same old faces. But with there being no transfer window for them, and there won't be one in January either, it's kind of, let's see what we can do. They might crash and burn and finish 10th. But I feel like Frank Lampard, what he did with Derby last season was reasonably impressive, although it was only one season in the Championship and the Premier League's a different animal. But he's a Chelsea legend, and I think he will get the respect in the dressing room that's not a lot of managers. I mean, I don't think Sarri quite had the respect of the dressing room. But Frank Lampard, the fans will never get on Frank Lampard's back. It will be the players responsible for what happens next season, and I think they know that. So for their own sakes, they've got to perform reasonably well. Otherwise, I don't think the fans will look too kindly. But there's enough quality there for them to finish fourth. As I said, I think it will be mainly Arsenal leaking goals that will probably help them. But there's enough quality there to get them into fourth place, and I think that's where they'll end up. They can't do much with the transfer window, so they can't really close the gap between them and the top three. But I think they can quite easily maintain fourth place, which is where they finished last year. Obviously, they won the Europa League as well. They've got a Super Cup to contest as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this season, but under Frank Lampard. But fourth place would be a solid first season for Frank, and I think that's where they'll finish. What about you, Russ? Are you going along the same lines?
I think in fourth place this season, just edging it above Arsenal. Mike won't like me for saying this, but I think he's going to be their North London rivals, Tottenham, which will pip them to fourth spot. They've
That's
got
a
pretty
bold
much
statement.
Like you said with Chelsea, they've got pretty much similar squad to last season. Only Ndombele at the moment has come into the side. They've also signed Jack Clark from Leeds, but he's been loaned back to Leeds, and Ndombele's come in. They've looked strong in pre-season in the games that I've called them in so far. Did well in the Audi Cup over the past couple of days as well. Beat Real Madrid on Tuesday, then beat Bayern Munich on penalties last night. They've got a strong squad, but I think with him having the same players and Pochettino playing the same style as they did last season, don't really change things unless towards the end of the season where it's getting a bit more tense, a bit more close in points wise, be tied in and around them points wise, and that don't really change the start of the season. He'll keep it the same to where it was back end of last season. I think that's the reason I've put Spurs in fourth above Arsenal. But I think overall, I think they're going to have a good season. They got to the Champions League final last season, just lost out to Liverpool in that one. But I think they're going to have another solid season, and I think they're going to finish fourth this season above Arsenal, Man U and Wolves, with my fifth, sixth and seventh respectively, if you missed them earlier in the podcast. JB, who have you got in fourth spot?
Oh, Christ. Yeah, I'm on now. Yeah, I am on. I've got to agree with Chris on this one, Russ. I have to be honest. I'm going for Chelsea, purely and simply because obviously Frank Lampard's a first-time manager in the Premier League. He is a Chelsea man through and through. They have the transfer embargo, as Chris said, and we can touch on that. But what Lampard will give you, he's going to unite the two. He's worked with some of the young lads that are coming through, the likes of Mason Mount and all that guys, and I think Callum Hudson-Odoi actually looks a very good prospect. I've seen him a few times last season, and he looks a really good player. And he, obviously, if he can get him fit and get him on side, I don't think they'll miss Hazard too much. I think he'll be a decent replacement. And of course, they've got Pulisic, who for what I've seen, he looks an absolute world beater on his day. So I don't think there's any problems there. I think he'll harmonise the dressing room. Obviously, as Chris alluded to, Sarri didn't. I mean, you just have to look at the shenanigans in the League Cup final back in February when Kepa didn't want to go off the field, and obviously tried to substitute the keepers for the penalties, and in the end it cost Chelsea the trophy. And you can tell there were friction there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Sarri won the Europa League, but I think I think his days would have been numbered anyway, even if he hadn't gone to Juventus. But I think Lampard, Chelsea legend, Chelsea man, he'll unite everybody there, and I think the youngsters will get a chance this time. I mean, obviously with the embargo now, they have to give youth a chance. I think there's some great youngsters coming through. As I said, Mason Mount, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Tammy Abraham. Can he step up to the plate in the Premier League and do well? They're the questions that need to be asked of some of these youngsters, and if they can step up to the plate, they've got Champions League football as well, which is a great bonus, so they don't have to play Thursday, Sunday all the time like they did last term. So I think that could make a huge difference. So I think they'll just nick they'll nick fourth just ahead of Arsenal there. So we're now down to the top three now, and now for third place, we hand back to Chris to obviously see. I think we know which team Chris might go for, but we'll let Chris tell you that now.
Yeah, well, it's Spurs, isn't it? I mean, it's mad to think that it would be anyone else in my opinion. But I mean, don't get me wrong, Chelsea could have a surprisingly good season. I mean, I'm guessing Russ is sort of looking at the bigger picture at how Arsenal sort of went when they finished runner-up in the Champions League and then moved to a new stadium. Could be the beginning of what happens to them, but with Spurs all over it. But yeah, third place, I'm going for Spurs. Again, it's very much the same team as last year, but I just don't think they've done anything to close the gap on the top two. And yeah, they finished runners-up. Obviously, they've moved Kieran Trippier on, who seemed to be the cause of all problems at Spurs last year. So it'll be interesting to see who they blame this time round. But yeah, it's very much a case of how fit they can keep Harry Kane, because whenever he went missing, it was quite obvious that they struggled a bit. And the other thing is, when they played him when he was unfit, I feel like in the Champions League final they played him when they really shouldn't have done, because he didn't look fit, he didn't look sharp. But Harry Kane at 100%, he bangs in 25 goals a season. So that all depends on that, whether they've got adequate squad depth, because that was always the thing, who comes in and replaces the goals when Harry Kane isn't there. Obviously, a certain Gareth Bale appears to be on the market, but the asking price is currently unknown, as Real Madrid can't seem to make up their mind as to whether they want to let him go, whether he stays, whether he's free, whether he's going to cost 20 or 80 million, and how are you going to cover the wages. But if I was Spurs, I'd be sort of keeping one eye on that. But for me, as I say, it's very much the same state as last year. They haven't really done too much transfer window-wise, and I just feel like it all depends on how fit Harry Kane is. And if he gets another injury midway through the season at a critical period, I just feel like they're not going to progress too much. They might do well in the cups, but this is about league position. So yeah, I'm going with Spurs in third. I get the feeling that Russ, we're probably going opposite way rounds with our third and fourth. Would I be correct?
That you would, CW, and the reasoning behind it, they've got Pulisic and they've got Kovacic from last season as well. They've got Mason Mount back from his loan spell, Tammy Abraham back from his loan spell as well last season. Got Batshuayi back from his loan spell. Then got Higuain from last season. He's now left, but I can see him playing, having a good season. Chelsea under Frank Lampard. You saw where they did a derby last season. Got them to the playoff final, albeit beating my team in the semi-finals. But I feel like Chelsea, with the players that they've got, yes, Hazard's gone, but I think Pulisic is a very talented replacement for Hazard. They've still got Willian at the moment, still got Pedro, got Olivier Giroud, who can all find the net, got N'Golo Kante, who can find the net, got Tomori, who can end up going out on loan to a Premier League side, but if not, he's going to be around the squad. Zuma, he set his stay, Stamford Bridge as well, and being around the squad, and he had a good loan spell at Everton last season. I think Chelsea have got really good squad depth in the squad from last season. Lampard will like the youth, he trusts them. You saw that at Derby last season. I think you're going to see that at Chelsea this season, obviously, with their transfer ban that is. And I think we're going to see Chelsea finishing in third, purely down to Pulisic, Abraham, Giroud, Pedro, Willian. The forward line, banking them enough goals in to get the top, to get them in that fourth, to get them in that third spot, should I say. And I can see them having a good season defensively as well, but I can't see them having too much. I can't see them breaking into the top two, unfortunately, for the Chelsea fans out there. But I can see Chelsea finishing third. This is another friend Lampard, and I think finishing third will be seen as a very good start to his managerial career at Stamford Bridge. As we said, as CW said, they can't sign any players in this window or January's transfer window, so they're going to struggle to sign players. Thereby, I think Chelsea will finish third this season, but I think they've got a good enough squad to finish third ahead of Spurs this season, so that's what I've gone for. And JB, I take it you've gone the opposite way around to me and agreeing with CW. I'm putting Spurs in third, not Spurred in third. So, JB, is Spurs your third place team in the Premier League this season?
In a word, no. And I'll tell you for why. This might
What?
anger. Yeah,
No, you're not doing this.
No, I've got to do this, right? There's a good reason as to why Liverpool. And the reason why I've gone with Liverpool in third place is purely and simply the amount of games they're going to have to play. Because, first of all, there's two good reasons. One, Klopp has not added anything significant to his squad yet, despite having the money there. Secondly, they've got to play because they're now European champions, they've got to go to Qatar in December during a very busy Premier League period to play up to 2 games in the World Club Championship, so they're going to be knackered. And if they don't add to the squad significantly, I can't see them being anywhere near finishing second, let alone top. And that could be the critical factor. So, Klopp's got to wait to pull his finger out and get some players in, because at the moment, I mean, the Liverpool team, don't get me wrong, on paper is quite strong. You look at the front three of Mane, Salah and Firmino, they are the best front three anywhere in Europe. There's no doubt about it. But in terms of squad depth, they don't seem to. I don't think it's strong enough, and that's my big worry about Liverpool this year. And it might surprise you and Chris, but I honestly feel that if that World Cup Championship, if they get far again in the Champions League and go deep into that, and they have a cup run as well on top of that, they're going to be playing upwards of 70, 75 games. And also you've got to take into account the English players that might be that are at Liverpool, like Trent Alexander-Arnold and all that sort of thing. Jordan Henderson, who's also England captain, they're going to be playing, if they get through in the Euros, and some of those players are going to be playing upwards of 80 games this season for club and country, and that's the worry. Are they going to be knackered? I know we've got the break as well, but the midweek winter break. But if they go deep in the FA Cup and the Champions League along with this World Club Championship thing, they're going to be playing 75 games this coming season. So it's going to be quite a tough ask for Liverpool, really. Do they go for the Champions League again? Do they go out and win the World Cup Championships? I'm sure they will. But it's going to affect them in the Premier League, especially around December time, when you've got to play like 7 matches in something like 8 to 9 matches in something like 30 days in the league, and then you've got 2 extra games on the other side of the world in Qatar to factor in. So there are good reasons as to why I think Liverpool might just finish third. But Klopp, if he's going to avoid that, I honestly think he needs to really look at getting his squad depth, because I don't think that, the quality's there, there's no doubt about it. It's a world-class squad anyway you look, goalkeeper through to attack, but I just think he needs more bodies in there just to cope with any suspensions and injuries they may well pick up for all these competitions that they're going to be in for. That is for sure. And they didn't really have a good pre-season game at Anfield last week either, but that might not have a significant bearing on it. But that's why I'm going to say Liverpool third. Right, Chris, top 2 now. I know which team you're going to have.
I just can't believe you put Liverpool third, man. That's
Well, what can I say? What can I say? Anyway, mate.
How could you put? I mean, if you do what I think you're going to do, then you're a bold man. But yeah, I've got Liverpool second, which obviously means that I'm tipping Manchester City to win the league. So I'll cover them both now. But the thing for me, obviously, I agree with John in a sense that they've got a lot of competitions to deal with this year. I sort of disagree with they're thin on the ground. In terms of numbers, I think they're fine. It's the quality. But I get the feeling that the players like Brewster might get their opportunity this year in, the youth players will get their opportunity this year because the League Cup, I get the feeling they'll probably get a bit of exposure. Yes, it's over in Qatar, but the opposition is questionable at best. I mean, the European teams generally walk their way to it, as they have. Real Madrid have won it to the last 3 years on the spin, because they're playing teams that aren't really anywhere near their level. I mean, the last time Liverpool were in the Club World Cup, to be fair, they didn't really go very far in it, but that was a long time ago, 2005, 2006 season. I just won the Champions League, but I think they'll be all right in terms of squad depth. But I just think they'll run Manchester City close again. But I just feel like have got too much going for them. I mean, domestically anyway, because they won everything domestically last year. It'll be interesting to see how close the two are when it comes to Community Shield, because Man City won the domestic treble, the team that finished second in the league plays in the Community Shield. It'll be interesting to see how close those two are. I mean, if it's a tight game, tons of goals against each other, then who knows? But I just feel like a lot of teams have the top three have sort of stayed the same. I don't feel like they've sort of made any inroads in terms of quality. I feel Manchester City's squad is practically the same, obviously minus Vincent Kompany, but they have the squad depth to deal with that. Kompany's obviously he's gone back to be player manager of Anderlecht. And Liverpool, again, they haven't really... They're a little bit thin on the ground up front in terms of quality, obviously, because Daniel Sturridge has left the club. So the backup striker is basically Ryan Brewster. And the Welsh kid who I forget the name of, but I just feel like the top three have sort of stayed the same, so I can't really see it being too different to last season. I mean, the teams behind them, I mean, has anyone really closed the gap to the top three? Should be the main question. For me, the answer is no. Arsenal have slightly, but that's about it. So for me, it's pretty much the same old story from last year, to be honest. The way Pep has everything set up and the way is fantastic. Whether they manage to do something in Europe and whether that affects their domestic form, again, we should see. Europe has a big effect on the domestic season. But for me, Liverpool, they're going to run them close again, and it's just going to be, the league last season was essentially decided by a few inches. I mean, there was a few goal line moments. I mean, Manchester City's goal against Burnley were all flipping teams that just about crept over the line. And Liverpool had one which bounced. It was just on the line. Maybe that those kind of situations swing the other way. But for me, it's stayed pretty much the same as last season. So we're Liverpool in second, just coming short. There'll probably only be a point, and it might even come down to goal difference. But Manchester City, they've got the strongest hand, and that remains to be the case. So that's how I've got it. I don't know about you, Russ. Are you going the same, or are you going to have somebody else's Premier League, somebody else on the Premier League trophy for next year?
Well, I'll go through my top two then, like CW has just done, and in second place for me is going to be Liverpool. And taking the title is going to be Manchester City, of course. So, the reason behind it, squad depth of City, they've got every single basis covered. So, some good players this season. This close season. Liverpool, I don't think they've got a lot of competitions to go at, as JB said, but I think they'll still come second, and I think City will nick it again in regards to the title. I can see the title going down to the final game of the season. They're both going to be level on points going into the final game of the season. With about 1 minute remaining of both games, Liverpool will be top of the league, with City drawing. City will get a last-minute winner to nick it from Liverpool's grasp on the final day of the season on goal difference.
Liverpool are edging it on goal difference at the time, and then City score the winner to win it on points, or
They're both going to be level on points, and Liverpool will be leading. City will be joining their game, so Liverpool will be 2 points above Man City. 1 minute remaining. City get the winning goal, score the winner in their game to get the title on goal difference. For me, I think. What do you reckon, JB, as to regards your second spot and of course
I swear,
the
if he
title?
does what I think he's going to do, I will flip a table somewhere.
JB, all yours.
Yes. Well, I don't think it's going to go to the last day somehow. I think, Spurs are going to finish second, in my opinion, just edging out Liverpool, of course. But I think
I was going to say, if you said Spurs will win the league, I would have had to flip something in my room because that would have been outrageous.
No. I think. Oh, by the way, Mike's just texted me just before I carry on. Arsenal reckons Arsenal will get second. Apparently, he's just texting me saying predicting Arsenal will get second place. But I don't think that will happen. Right. Anyway.
Yeah, we're not going to let him fight his case if he's not here, shall we? Yeah.
No, he's just messaged me on Facebook now, just telling me that he can't get on. By the way, so it's just the three of us now from now on in. Right. Second place, Tottenham. I think the hindrance of Wembley now is gone. I think now that they're back at the spiritual home, albeit rebuilt, a new rebuilt White Hart Lane or Tottenham Hotspur Stadium or whatever you want to call it, I think that'll help them a bit. The acid test will be keeping Harry Kane fit. They've gone into the transfer market, got a couple of decent players. But it is practically the same squad as last year. They surprised quite a number of people in the Champions League. I mean, they did magnificently to get to the final, but by the end they just ran a bit out of steam. I think they'll run out of steam as regards Manchester City. I think obviously City will win the league, but I'll tell you how much they'll win by in a second. They could have a good run. I think they have a chance to win a cup. I think if they can win a trophy this year, a League Cup or an FA Cup, I think that'll be a great season. And second place, I think any Spurs fan will take that at the start. I like the look of Spurs this year. I really do. They play some great football, and as Russ points out, they won the Aldi friendly competition over in Munich the other night. So, you know, the pre-season seems to have gone well for them. Manchester City, I don't share Russ's story that his theory that City are going to win it on the last second. I think they're going to win it very comfortably. I think they're going to win it by about 6 or 7 points. And I think they'll do it with 2 weekends. I think they'll seal the title with a couple of weeks to spare, 2 or 3 weeks to spare at the end of the season. You look at the all-round package. They're match winners anywhere, from goalkeeper to up front. You know, obviously they've lost Finney Company, of course, but they've got John Stones, Nicholas Otamendi, and everybody else that can obviously fill in and replace. Of course, there's Laporte as well. He's a very capable defender. I know it went to the last day last year, but I think Manchester City, you look at the all-round package, they are, you know, I think they'll win the league very, very easily, and I think they'll win it again with high 90 points. I think they'll probably get about 96, 97 points this year, but they'll win it very comfortably. I think they'll win it with 2 or 3 weeks of the season to spare. So I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as Russ thinks it's going to be. And I think the big test really for City in outside of the league is to win, obviously, to win the European Cup. I think that's the holy grail. Now, Pep Guardiola knows full well, he's an experienced manager now at top level. I think this has got to be the year where they have to win the European Cup, the Champions League. I think if they can do that, I think one thing he's got to do. I mean, I admire him for taking the 2 domestic cups very seriously, and he obviously did that to the letter. And he won the FA Cup for the first time last year, and he won the cup.
They were bloody lucky to get past Swansea.
Yeah, they were. I commentated on that actually, and they should have lost. But but what you saw in that game was the famous fighting spirit that they do have when the chips are down, and that's how good they really are when they are on their game and the backs are against the wall. But I think. And I admire Pep for taking the 2 domestic competitions seriously. He won the Carabao easily. He won the Carabao on penalties as well. But I think really City should put their eggs into the Premier League and the Champions League basket this year, because I think if he takes all 4 competitions seriously, he's probably going to end up not winning one of them. And it always seems to be the European Champions League that he doesn't seem to get far enough in. And they lost. They were one VAR disallowed goal away from a semi-final with Ajax last year, so they were very unlucky to miss out really against Spurs. But I have to say it is. I can't see any other team getting close to Man City in the league, and I think if they put their eggs into the Premier League and the European Champions League, I can see them winning the Champions League this season. I know Real Madrid have got Zidane back, and I know Barcelona are going to be there or thereabouts, and of course Liverpool are not going to relinquish their European title without a fight. But this is the season where I think Manchester City should just go for the league and the Champions League. Forget about the Carabao Cup. Forget about the FA Cup. They don't need to win those 2. Just win the league and the European Cup, and then they've exercised the Holy Grail, if they like. They've exercised a few ghosts in that department. I think this is going to be the season where they're going to be champions of England and champions of Europe. And there we go. And that brings us to the end of the predictions. So all of us are agreed that Manchester City are going to be champions. Obviously, I disagree with the other 2 that Liverpool are going to finish second. I've gone for Spurs, obviously, and I've given my reasons why. Now we're going to get to another nitty-gritty part of the thing again. We're going to go from 15th down to bottom now. This is the relegation zone. Now 15th down to bottom, because there's going to be at least 4 or 5 teams that are going to be battling to avoid the 3 relegation places at the end of the season. And we knew, and for a while last season, we had no idea who was going to go down from the Premier League last year, with the exception of Huddersfield, who, as everyone knows, was well adrift by Christmas. But I think the relegation scrap will be just as interesting, and of course Burnley will probably be in the thick of it, considering their window. But me and Chris will touch on that later on in the podcast. So what we're going to do, we're going to do the same order again, same merry-go-round. So we're going to go for Chris first, and then Russ, then myself each time, and we're going to go from 15th down to 20th as regards the relegation sub. So we're going to go back to Chris again. Which team do you think are going to just avoid relegation and finish in 16th place? We're going to go 16th down to the bottom. Sorry. So we're going to go 15th. We'll go 15th. Okay, because it's like bottom 6. Okay. So 15th place, Chris. Who's your money on to finish 15th and just avoid all that rat race at the bottom?
You've got to be scrambling there with 15th. Okay, well, I will have to go with. I'm going to have to go with Newcastle in 15th place. That might raise a few eyebrows, but Mike Ashley suddenly found a bit of loose change down the back of the sofa for Steve Bruce, probably because the Newcastle fans would literally have rioted had they not done something. I just feel like Steve Bruce is an interesting appointment. He's a safe pair of hands for maybe this season and next season. But whilst Mike Ashley does his Mike Ashley things, I think 15th is probably as good as it can get for Newcastle. And given the teams that are in the division and what people have done around in the transfer market, I think Newcastle, I think the signing that they made of the striker whose name escapes me will be good, obviously, because they lost Rondon. But their team is reasonably good. Longstaff, if he stays at Newcastle, I think it's probably a better career move for him rather than going to Manchester United, because he'll get more minutes at Newcastle and he'll be liked by the fans a lot more, I think. But I think the structure that Rafa Benitez would have left there, because he got them playing pretty resolutely in defence. Obviously, Lascelles, they've done well at the back. Rafa organised them, and if Steve Bruce is a smart man, he won't have changed too much. He'll just be looking for them to be perhaps a little bit more adventurous going forward, and I think if he can do that, 15th is a realistic aim for them. So 15th place. I had to scramble for it, but I'm going to go with Newcastle United on that one. So interesting to see who Russell puts in 15th, but we shall now find out, I guess. Russ.
Yes, JB, yes, CW, and yes, the listeners. In 15th place for me, guys, it is your boys, Burnley. I'm just looking at the transfers that they've made this season. Signed Jay Rodriguez and Eric Peters from Stoke and West Brom. Two very good acquisitions there. Looks like you're on the verge of getting Legionnaire goalkeeper Bailey Peacock-Farrell for £3.5 million. That's set to be ratified very, very soon. He underwent a medical earlier today, so I think that's a very shrewd acquisition as well. Northern Ireland international goalkeeper. Looking at the players who have left this summer, Peter Crouch has obviously hung up his boots and retired. Anders Lindegaard has gone to Sweden in Helsingborg on a free transfer. Also leaving is John Walters, who's retired. Stephen Ward's gone to Stoke. I was very surprised when I saw him get released, and I was surprised to see Tom Eaton go to Aston Villa, but I can understand Eaton's reasons joining Villa, who won first team football, and I think with Pope coming back from injury, I think he may be Sean Dyche's number one man. Looking at the squad as well from last season that you've still got in and around the club, I don't feel like you've got. I feel like you've got enough to finish in 15th and not be in a scrapping even further down the table with the players that you've got in. You've not got the European format to look at, to consider that this season. Got some good players in the squad. Charlie Taylor, Matt Loughton, Jack Cork, James Tarkowski, Ben Mee, Ashley Barnes, Robbie Brady as well. I do, however, feel you may need an extra striker, and that is just down to getting to replace probably Peter Crouch. Now you've got Rodriguez in, but I think you may need another tall striker if things aren't going right towards and season, along with, and in case Wood gets injured, so you've got an alternative to Chris Wood, in my opinion. So I feel like you need another body in there. I feel like you may need someone to replace Aaron Lennon, because I think he's coming towards the end of his tenure now in his football career. So for me, it's your boys in 15th, Burnley.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I'm going to go with Burnley as well.
That's my exact reaction. Just 15th? God, blimey.
Well, I'm going to go just about Burnley in 15th. I think there are about 3 or 4 worse teams than Burnley, but obviously we'll touch on the lack of transfer activity later on in the programme. But purely and simply because I think we don't have that European burden. I don't agree with you on the striker front, Chris. I think we're well catered for there. We've got 4 very good strikers there. We've got Ward, obviously, and Barnes, who can hit it off between them and score crucial goals at crucial moments. And certainly in the second half of last season, which got us out of the mess we were in at the halfway mark of the season. We've also brought J-Rod in, and you conveniently forgot Matty Vidra, who on his day is a very good striker himself, who hasn't really been given a chance by Sean Dyche. So I don't think the strike is the main issue. I think we do need a midfielder. I honestly think that Jack Cork can, on his day, he's a great player, but he's a little bit ordinary. And Ashley Westwood, if he gets injured, and then there's the Stephen Defoe issue, of course, which we, as I say, we'll touch on more about it later. But I'm going to say 15th. I think Nick Pope will have a great season. I don't think Big Up Fella will be our number one anyway. I think he'll probably be second choice or third choice behind, battling for that second choice spot with Joe Hart. Should Joe Hart stay, obviously. And again, a lot of the reason, I think a lot will depend whether Tarkowski as well stays, because there's the Harry Maguire merry-go-round. If Maguire goes to Manchester United, will Leicester pounce for us, for our centre back Tarkowski? And then I don't know, but as I say, we'll touch on Burnley a bit more later in the programme. But I'm going to say 15th, but it all depends on what we do in the next week. As regards to transfers, bearing that in mind, otherwise it might be a little bit more tighter than 15. But if we do, I think a little bit better in the window in the next week, and this is wishful thinking, I know, but I think we could finish a bit higher. But I'm just gonna stick with 15 for Burnley and I'm done with it, because I think the squad is good enough. I think there are 4 or 5 worse teams out there than ourselves in terms of depth and experience and stuff like that, especially the 2 or 3 of the, at least 1 or 2 of the promoted teams, and of course 1 or 2 others from last season as well. But I'm going to say Burnley 15th. Okay, now we're going to 16th place, and we start again with Chris. Who's your tip to finish 16th and again just avoid relegation this season?
Well, in 16th I've got Aston Villa. I think they've not hung about this transfer market, and they've gone out and got what they needed. And I think the final piece of the puzzle was a certain Tom Heaton. As much as I hate to say that Tom Heaton is no longer a Burnley player, I think he is a extremely good value signing for Aston Villa. To get him for £8 million is an obscene. It's daylight robbery, more or less. But I think they'll survive comfortably. I think the manager's got great. He's got a great connection with the fans and everything, and the football that they play is very good. And I just feel like they don't feel like a newly promoted side either. It doesn't really feel like they've been away from the Premier League, Aston Villa. And I just think the experience they've had from the past, they'll have a good idea as to what to do this season. And obviously, they've made something like 11 signings already. The latest one being Marvellous Nakamba, with that absolutely marvellous name. I think it's I think they'll survive comfortably. I say comfortably, finishing 16th, but I think they'll sort of flirt with relegation, but I think in the end they'll be all right. And so I've got them down as 16th. What about you, Russ? How are you faring with 16th place?
I'm going with another promoted team from the Championship last season, and I'm going with the team that won the Championship title, Norwich City. Yes, they've signed up some decent players. Dermich is one, Sam Byram as well, a decent defender. But I feel they will have enough goals in them to stay up, and defence will be good. And I feel like they can finish quite comfortably in 16th, avoid relegation. When I say comfortably 16th, you may look at that and say, well, that's not very comfortable. Well, to finish 5 places above the drop zone, well, couple of places above the drop zone is a very good thing. So I think Norwich will finish there. Daniel Farke did an excellent job last season in the Championship, and I feel like he could have another solid season, keep them up. 2 good Norwich fans of mine, who Chris Reeve and Jack Reeve host a fellow channel on YouTube, Norwich City. The podcast, excellent coverage there. Did an incredible interview with Stuart Webber, talking all about the transfers, how they're going to go about the recruitment policy this season, and what they've gone through and what they've looked for in managers, what they looked for when Farke came in as a manager, and what they're looking for if he goes, and how they're developing the setup. Looks a very good sounds a very good project. Then I think the signings that they've made has proved that they're going to be do well this season. I think they're going to finish 16th in the Premier League table. JB, who is going to be your 16th place team in the Premier League next season?
I'm going to go with Chris on this one. I agree with Chris on this one. Aston Villa. As difficult as it is, I mean, I think Tom Eaton's...
Have you somehow got hold of my team sheet going on here? What's going on, John?
No. Trust him to interrupt. The reason why I've gone for Villa is they've spent quite a lot of money. They've been ambitious. They've gone out in the transfer market. Dean Smith, as I say, as everyone knows, is a Villa fan. His dad actually used to be a steward at Villa Park once upon a time when Dean Smith was going up. They've also got a very good backup. Obviously, they've got a great assistant there, John Terry. He's been round the block at the highest level for years, so he's been there, seen it, done it, and he knows what it takes to achieve he knows what it takes to achieve in the top flight in Premier League. I think Jack Grealish will be key as well. Villa man, we can talk about all the new signings they bought, and they've spent something like about 120, 130 million pounds all in all buying 11 players. But I think the big key player for them as well, obviously, along with the new signings, is obviously Jack Grealish, because you look at him, that's how they won the playoffs last year, because of Jack Grealish's work rate and will to win. He's a Villa man through and through, and obviously if Jack Grealish stays out of trouble, because he did well, because he had a bit of a reputation when he first started out at Villa a few years ago, of been having a bit of a ruthless streak and getting himself into trouble and getting himself into bother. I mean, you just have to look at how he coped with that incident at Birmingham City last year when he got struck by that fan. He didn't react. He didn't lose his rag. He got on with it, and he ended up scoring the decisive goal in that game, which helped Villa get towards those players and ultimately winning at Wembley. I do honestly think that Villa will have enough to stay up. 16th place, I think, will be great. And obviously, when I don't think visiting teams will enjoy going to Villa Park. I think if they can stay up and finish 16th, I think they can then kick on and finish higher the season afterwards. But I think, I mean, there have been comparisons with Fulham a year ago. They spent big, but they didn't have a Fulham man in charge, a man that knew Fulham inside out. Jukanovic just spent the money and just spent it willy-nilly. I think Dean Smith's probably done it a bit more differently. He knows what he needs for his side. He's a Villa man through and through, so he'll know full well what Aston Villa will mean. I know they spent big, but I think they'll just about do it and finish in 16th. Right, now we get to the bottom four, and we're going to go. We're obviously going to say 17th, 18th until the last. So what we're going to do is jump to the 20th place. Who's going to finish bottom of the Premier League? Because we're going to just tense it up a little bit now. So we're going to jump to 20th place now. Who do you think is going to finish bottom, Chris? I think I might have a suspicion who it might be, and I've got a suspicion it might be a newly promoted side from Sheffield. Am I right, Chris, to finish 20th?
No, you're not. I'm afraid you're a bit off the mark with that one, I'm afraid, John. I've got Brighton as the team to finish bottom. It's Mike's throw the cat amongst the seagulls, if you will. But yeah, I just feel like firing Chris Hughton is probably the worst thing Brighton could have done. I feel like it was a very foolish decision bringing in Graham Potter as manager. He did all right, but at Swansea. But I don't see why they seem the need to. Brighton were doing fine under Hughton, and to just chop and change like that, I don't feel like they've done enough in the transfer market to really ensure that they're going to stay up. And I just feel like that's going to be a rude awakening for what seemed to be a silly decision. And I mean, Potter could surprise everyone. He could do really well at Brighton for all I know. But to me, on paper, it just they don't have the makings of staying up. I mean, they only just stayed up last year, and Houghton would have identified what he needed to improve on, and that plan would have gone straight in the bin. So who knows? But for me, Brighton, I don't feel like they've got enough quality, and the manager doesn't have enough experience at this level, and I think that's just going to add up, and I just can't see them finishing. I can't see them finishing outside the bottom three, but I've got them finishing bottom, because I just feel like that they haven't moved forward at all, if I'm honest. So yeah, I've got them in 20th place. That might raise a few eyebrows, but there you go. What about you, Russ? Are you going to go with John's prediction, or are you going to throw a different cat amongst the pigeons?
I'm not going to go with John's prediction, but CW. What was the team that you said again?
Well, I said Brighton. The Seagulls. Cat amongst the Seagulls is what I've gone with. Brighton, bottom.
Well, I'm agreeing with you, CW. Brighton, purely down to Graham Potter. First season in England was last season with Swansea after a brilliant job at Ostersunds. Did well to get him finishing in the top 10, I think he was. Swansea coming at Brighton to replace Chris Houghton. I think Brighton's going to regret that claim of getting rid of Chris Houghton. Going to regret getting rid of him. He was a decent manager. Don't know why they got rid of him. Got to the FA Cup semi-finals. One more look at the one that stayed up. Again, a lot of people have probably had him to go down last season. They stayed up, and I think, looking at all that, I feel like Brighton are going to struggle this season. Just looking at the transfers that they've actually bought this season, they've got a central midfielder in from Man City and Taylor Richards, who no one's really heard of. Lewis Freestone from Peterborough, not really heard of him. Andrew Clough's from Yeovil, I think he's been at Gillingham as well, so I've really heard of him. They've got Leandro Trossard in as well from Genk, and Matthew Clark from Portsmouth. It'd be interesting to see if Clark from Portsmouth, Todd Miller from Colchester, Andrew Clough's from Yeovil will be able to make that step up into the Premier League. But looking at the players who they've let go this window, they've let go Anthony Knockout, which I think was a bit of a strange one. I thought they might have tried keeping him. He's gone out on loan to Fulham, which that's going to be a permanent switch at the end of the season. Ben White, not really being given much of a chance. He's gone on loan to Leeds. Well, I've seen him so far. I'll touch a bit more on him a bit later, but I think that could be a strange decision. Christian Walton, I know they've got Matthew Ryan as a goalkeeper. One of the goalkeepers, Jason Steele, David Button, three good goalkeepers ahead of Walton. But I feel Walton, after watching him last couple of seasons, last season with Wigan, I think season before he was at Wigan as well, he impressed me for Wigan in both of those campaigns. I feel like they made a wrong choice in getting rid of him there. Bruno Retible back on the coaching side. I think that's going to work well because of the system which Potter, he knows the club inside. I can help Potter along, but I still think they're going to go down. Looking at others that have left, Richie Towell, I've been seeing him at Rotherham over the last couple of seasons where he's been on loan. I felt they should have been given a chance in the Premier League. I felt like he was ready to have a chance in the Premier League, but obviously his contract was up. They decided not to renew it. He's gone to Football League New Boys Salford City, who start their season against Stevenage this weekend. So I think that was a very poor decision to get rid of him as well. They've had a fairly decent pre-season campaign. 1-5-2 against FC Liefering. Beat Crawley 1-0, only lost one game in pre-season, which was against Fulham, and they beat Birmingham 4-0 last time out as well. But I think Brighton are going to struggle this campaign, especially if they lose Lewis Dunk because there's talks of if Leicester lose Harry Maguire to Manchester United, then Lewis Dunk could be on his way from Brighton to Leicester. So that could be one to keep an eye on. John and Chris in the next week or so, well, less than a week now, as the window closes at 5 p.m. next Thursday for Premier League clubs. So I think that is a bit of a strange one to get rid of Richie Towell, and I think the appointment is a bit strange as well. There's not really that much experience in England, but I feel the goals from Glenn Murray, Izquierdo as well, will probably, and Tom Ahmed, if he stays around, probably won't be enough, and Andone probably won't be enough to keep them up this season, especially losing Anthony Knockaert, who was for me, one of their key players in games last season, along with Jan Bach as well. And JB, have you gone with the team from Sheffield? And I don't mean Wednesday, I mean about the other one from Sheffield, from Bramall Lane, Sheffield United. Have you gone with them to finish 20th place this season?
Well, that's probably the worst kept secret on the podcast, to be honest with you, Russ. I have actually, although I do agree with a lot of what you say about Brighton. But I think Sheffield United, I think they're going to struggle, I mean, don't get me wrong, to get into the Premier League against all the odds, they were probably favourites to go down last year when they got into the Championship. But I have to say, Chris Wilder's done a magnificent job, and that's not to knock him, but he hasn't got the experience, of course, of being at the top level. And, he's made some good signings, but, the one big signing that they've made, the one big name signing they've made is Ravel Morrison, the former West Ham player. He's come in out of the wilderness back into English football. But the problem with Ravel Morrison, will he cost them in the long run, because he's a great player on his day, Ravel Morrison, but he does have this tendency to kick up a right old rumpus, and sometimes his disciplinary record isn't the best. So I'm not sure whether that was maybe a good enough signing. I think they'll battle bravely, and I think they'll score more points than what Huddersfield did last year when they ended up finishing bottom. But I think Sheffield United will bravely finish bottom, but I think they'll win a few games and give teams certainly a good examination when visiting teams go over to Bramall Lane. But I just think you look at the depth and the players that they can only, they can't attract great players, obviously. They've gone on 2 promotions, and they've done magnificently well to get there and finishing second last year to Norwich. But I'm going to I just think based on what they've brought in and what the squad they've got at the moment, I can't see them finishing any place other than 20th. But I don't think they'll be the lowest point. I don't think they'll get the lowest points tally by any means. So I think Huddersfield's record should be okay there. So I'm going to go with Sheffield United to finish bottom. So that was the worst kept secret on tonight's podcast. Don't forget, incidentally, we'll be focusing on the promoted teams during the season, of course, so we'll be doing full match commentaries of those. Right, anyway, back to tonight and to 19th place. So, Chris, who do you think is going to finish? Who's going to be relegated and finish second from bottom?
Wow. Well, now, it's not Sheffield United, so for your information. It is. It's Burnley for me, I'm afraid. It's just. Again, you might be. John's probably sitting there going, "What?" Russ is probably going, "What?" But no, I just feel like the magic's going to stop. I'm afraid Sean Dyche's magic wand is going to stop, because you can't keep having rubbish transfer windows and it not bite you in the backside at some point. And this, I think, is a season where it's going to catch up. The squad, as a majority, are pretty much the wrong side of 30. There's the average age is pretty high. I think it's the highest in the Premier League. I think that's going to show. There's a complete lack of pace in the side, other than Dwight McNeil. The football we play is very predictable, and selling Tom Heaton to Aston Villa, I think, is a huge. Selling Tom Heaton in general, was a bad mistake. I would have much preferred we kept him and lost him for free at the end of the season, because that would have, at least, to me, Tom Heaton being in between the sticks guarantees Premier League survival. But the decision to let him go, whether it was because Tom Heaton wanted to go, I mean, the whole situation came about because of, I mean, we'll get to that a little bit later on, but that decision is going to bite us. And I just feel like we're too thin on the ground in the centre of the park. You know, we don't have enough central midfielders. If we get an injury there, we are in big trouble. Which, when you've got two players that are made of glass called Robbie Brady and Stephen Defoe, that's a high possibility. And I just get the feeling that if we hand Ben Mee the captaincy, which is a high probability, it's just going to go horrifically wrong. And yeah, there's only so many times you can somehow not go down. And I think this is when the magic's going to stop, I'm afraid. Mike Garlick has naffed up too many transfer windows. This one will be one too many. And I just get the feeling it's going to be a horrific season for Burnley fans. And unless we do something in this next week, which I won't hold my breath over, 19th is where we're going to end up. I mean, I would have said 20th, but I just feel like Brighton are in a much worse position than us. And yeah, it's just... I'm not optimistic. I'm not sure if you can tell that. So, yeah. What about you, Russ? Who have you got 19th?
I've gone with the team from Sheffield, which JB has put bottom. I'm looking at the transfers that they've done this season. Luke Freeman, very good last season for QPR. I think that's a very shrewd acquisition. Same with Ben Osborne from Nottingham Forest as well, and Callum Robinson from Preston. Last Moussa from Bournemouth, which quite a lot of these players that have signed have broke the transfer records. Phil Jagielka coming back, I think that's going to be the experience which will keep them off of the bottom of the table, but won't be enough to keep them in the Premier League next season, unfortunately. Looking as well with El Morrison back in English football. Yes, he has a bit of a temper, but I think that could be a good signing which will help him stay up. Well, stay off of the bottom, should I say, not stay up, because I think they're going to go down. Also, Dean Henderson back. I thought he was exceptional last season in the Championship, and I think signing him back has proved a very shrewd acquisition for Chris Wilder and his side, but I feel that the lack of Premiership players in the squad will see Sheffield United get relegated this season in 19th place. Like other teams, like the Brighton, they've only lost one game all pre-season as well. Beat Real Betis 1-0, lost to Burton Albion 2-1, beat Northampton 2-0, beat Chesterfield 5-0, beat Barnsley 4-1 last Saturday, and by all accounts from what I've been told, I didn't see any of that game before I was told. All 4 goals from Sheffield United came against the winner play. They lost Connor Washington, who I think would have probably added a bit more goals and probably might have kept him out of the bottom 3 if he'd decided to stay, but they released him. And he's gone across to Scotland into Arts. Also, Paul Coote, I was surprised when I saw him get released at the end of last season. I thought he played well in the games he featured in last season for Sheffield United. Serbo and the players who have gone out on loan didn't really get much of a game time, so I can't really comment on those because I didn't really see much of those last season. But I feel, despite signing Phil Jagielka with Premiership experience and Premiership quality and knows what it's like to play in that division, along with Ravel Morrison, having he featured in the Premier League with Manchester United, I feel like Sheffield United will go down this season in 19th spot, just above Brighton, and below a team which you'll find out very soon who I've put in 18th spot. And JB, who have you put in 19th spot above Sheffield United, who you have got as rock bottom, JB?
Yes, just before I answer that, Russ, can I just remind you, Chris, that the last time you fancied Burnley finishing in the relegation zone, albeit bottom, we actually finished 7th. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, if that happens again, I'll be totally fine with it.
Thank you. Right, anyway, right, moving swiftly on. 19th place, I'm going to go for Brighton. Obviously, for the simple reasons as what you, Chris, and you, Russ, have mentioned, of course. Graham Potter, he did a good job. He did okay at Swansea. They weren't brilliant. I mean, I think their best performance was in that cup tie against Manchester City, where they were very unlucky to lose out 3-2, controversial decision. But you look at, I have to concur with what you guys have said about them. I think Chris Hughton going was probably the wrong thing to do. Maybe the board took the dim view that Hughton didn't have a good run in the second half of the season. There were times where some of the performances were a bit shocking. Burnley, when they were soundly beaten by us at the Amex. Bournemouth, when they came there and won 5-0, I mean, they managed to stay up practically in a game that I covered at Wolves, where it was basically all-out Wolves attack and Brighton just defended like lions and managed to stay up. But they weren't even convincing when reaching the cup semi-final last year. I know Russ pointed out they reached the semi-finals, and they did. I remember doing the match against Millwall, and they should have lost that game. I know they won it on penalties. They weren't that great either last year against Millwall. Millwall should have gone through to the semis.
Well, the Millwall keeper dropped a clanger, didn't he? So they've got.
He did drop a clanger, and that's how Brighton got out of jail. But that's besides the point. Now this year, obviously, they've sacked Hughton and they've sacked their director of football at the time. And I think I do agree with Chris that I think Hughton would have probably done a much better job. He's a very good safe pair of hands, and I think Brighton will regret doing that. Graham Potter, as I said, I'm not convinced. I mean, you look at the team now, there's the danger of them losing, as Russ points out, Lewis Dunk, as you, Russ, point out, that Lewis Dunk may well on his way. They'll probably want a sizable fee for him. It depends whether Leicester decide to pick him over Tarkowski should Maguire go to United. Manchester United, that is. He's got to get it right tactically. I don't think he's got the Premier League nous to do that. As I said, he had a decent season, but an unremarkable season at Swansea City last year. They did play some good football at times, but it wasn't good enough for them to even warrant an outside chance of the playoffs. So, in that respect, I think they've lost Knockaert. I think Knockaert could have given them something a little bit extra, even as an impact substitute. I think Glenn Murray's now way past his sell-by date. You've got to also factor in that, you mentioned Burnley side being on the wrong side of 30. I mean, some of the Brighton players are getting a bit over the other side of 30. If you factor in the likes of Glenn Murray, for example, he's now 38, near enough. He seems to have been around forever, and they can't keep relying on him to score goals every other season. And I think that's where they might just get done, really, Brighton. The lack of goals, potentially. Defensive-wise, if they lose Lewis Dunk, then I can't see them keeping many clean sheets either. If they can keep their best players, they might have a slight chance of staying up, but I've got my doubts about them. Is the manager astute enough? Obviously, we'd have to factor in managerial seconds and that, but I have to say, I think Brighton will probably pay for losing Chris Hughton. I know he didn't have a great end to his career there, but he would have, as Chris rightly points out, you can't just, he'd have fixed those wrongs right, but the board became too impatient and decided. I mean, it's one of the most strangest appointments in the Premiership, but so I'm going to go on the basis of the fact that the manager's inexperienced and the possibility of losing Dunk, and because they've got a very old strike force, certainly they'll be relying a lot on Glenn Murray. I can't see Brighton staying up, so I'm going to have them to finish 19th. Right, final two positions. Now we're going to obviously going to do 18th and then 17th, obviously. So the final two positions are going to be filled on this next go. And Chris has first dibs on who he thinks is going to finish 18th first and then 17th. So Chris, over to you. Who you going to choose for those two positions? Who's going to stay up and who's going to go down? Who's going to finish 17th and 18th?
Well, it's between two teams, one of them being Sheffield United, one of them being Norwich. So the two promoted sides, obviously other than Villa, who in my opinion are going to stay up. All three of them, ironically, next to each other as well in 18th, 17th and 16th. But in 18th place is going to be Norwich City, in my opinion. Because so Sheffield United's safe. We'll get to them in a second. But for me, I look at this Norwich City side and I feel like I see a lot of similarities between this side and the one that Owen Coyle took to the Premier League with Burnley. A lot of attacking nous, but I feel like it won't quite be as defensively savvy in the Premier League. I feel like, there'll be plenty of goals in the games involving Norwich City, I feel, but I just get the feeling that they're going to leak more goals than they score. And I feel like that's going to just edge them into the trapdoor for me. It's very close. It was really hard to pick between the two. Sheffield United, I feel like Chris Wilder has energised the club ever since he turned up. And I just see this fairy tale of Billy Sharp scoring a goal on the final day to keep them up. And I'd love to see that. But I just feel like Sheffield United, they have unfinished business. Like this season, they're going to grab that opportunity to make up for lost time. Let's not forget the dirty business between them and West Ham that took place over a decade ago, which I'm sure Neil Warnock will talk most people's ears off about how that should never have happened and whatnot. But Sheffield United West Ham, by the way, circle that on your fixtures list, John. That should be one for up for the commentaries. But yeah. Sheffield United, I think their home record will be the main thing for them. I reckon Bramall Lane is going to be a hell of a place to go in the Premier League this season, and I think that will be enough to keep them up. Away from home, if they can pick up a few draws here and there, that should be enough to keep them up. But for me, with Norwich, I feel like the style that they play leaves them very open, and in the Premier League, you get punished if you leave yourselves even remotely open, and I just get the feeling that they're going to score a lot of goals, Norwich, but I just feel like they're going to concede a lot as well. So I'm going for Norwich in 18th and Sheffield United staying up by the skin of their teeth in 17th place. It's my bottom six. I'll just go through them again quickly. So Brighton in 20th, Burnley 19th, Norwich in 18th, Sheffield United 17th, Villa 16th, and Newcastle 15th. So that is my bottom six. Russ, what are you rounding off with here with 18th and 17th?
In 18th position, I think it will be Crystal Palace. And staying up will be the team that Steve Bruce has just taken charge of, Newcastle United. Newcastle have signed Yolatin in the transfer window strike to replace Rondon, which, looking from what I've seen so far, I think it'll be he's going to replace the goals. They've also lost Jose Perez and Yosselu as well, which I feel like they've got enough in the squad to replace them. And I feel they'll have enough goals in them to keep them up. As with Crystal Palace getting relegated, the reasoning behind that, I think, is that they're probably going to lose Wilfred Zaha, and I think he'll be a key miss for Crystal Palace next season. I feel like Crystal Palace will struggle without him. Him and Townsend were good on quite a lot of things last season at Selhurst Park, and I think Roy Hodgson's men will struggle with ours that are, and I don't feel, and don't think, should I say, that Townsend will be able to perform to the same level if Zaar leaves, and I can see them struggling this season. I don't think defensively they'll have enough to stop leaking goals at the back, which will see them go down. I can't see them scoring enough goals either to stay in the division. So for me, Crystal Palace to go down and Newcastle to stay up in the Premier League this season. JB, what about you, my friend? Who do you have going down and who do you have staying up?
Well, before I answer that, I was very surprised when you mentioned Crystal Palace. I think they've got one of the best managers, I believe, in club management in the business.
I must admit, I was surprised as well.
Yeah, I think Roy Hodgson would. I think they've got enough to stay up. So I was quite surprised actually. Right. Anyway, moving on. 18th place. This was a tough one. It was between Newcastle and Norwich City. But because they haven't really improved in all areas, I'm sorry, I'm going to upset probably about a whole city of passionate Geordies here, I'm afraid. And if the true Geordie is somehow watching me tonight, listening in tonight, I think you better cover your ears, pal, because in 18th place I've gone for Newcastle, unfortunately. I'll explain the reasons why. So Norwich are going to finish 17th, and I'll explain the reasons as to why. I know you two have gone for Newcastle to stay up, but I just think that Newcastle, they've spent £30 million on a striker to replace Rondon, but they haven't improved in any other area. I think goalkeeper, they look a bit suspect there. Can Jamal Lascelles perform again like next season? The defence doesn't look sound. I mean, they look a championship on paper. They look a championship team. I mean, it was only the genius management of Rafa Benitez that kept them up last year, and kept them up quite well, actually, to be fair. It only kept them up for the last 2 or 3 years. I just think with Steve Bruce. Now, the problem with Steve Bruce is, I mean, he's an experienced manager. He's a Newcastle man. He's managing his own town club, and he's left Sheffield Wednesday to take on the job. And fair play to him. And I think he's he'd be regretted if he didn't take it. The only problem is he hasn't managed in the top flight for a few years now, and obviously time has moved on as regards the Premier League. He's also got a bit of a bad record of taking teams down from the Premier League and taking them backwards. Sunderland, Birmingham, he got relegated with Birmingham a couple of times. So there's that sort of problem there. I understand the Newcastle fans' frustration, and there's the protest as well. Is that going to? There's the so-called protest on the opening day that's supposed to be happening. That's going to affect the team as well on the pitch. I think they will not replace the goals of Solomon Rondon. I don't think they've replaced Ayoze Perez, who I thought at the back end of the season when it really mattered was actually their best player. A lot of people have pointed to Rondon being one of the reasons. But a lot of people seem to conveniently forget that Ayoze Perez more or less kept them up and they've let him go. I think that's their biggest mistake. I think they've let Ayoze Perez go, and I think he was the difference, in my opinion, of staying up and going down with them staying up rather than going down last year. So I think on that basis I've got to choose Newcastle to be the bottom three. Norwich are just about going to do it. And I like Norwich. I've got a lot of time for them. They're a good little club. It's in a nice part of the world, East Anglia. Norfolk, again, a lovely part of the world, as Chris will testify. It's nice to see them back in there. Their fans are going to provide colour wherever they go, in their beautiful canary yellow Boris shirts. I think they've got a very good manager, Stuart Webb, as I said. Chris, as everyone points out, Stuart Webb, or is it Stuart Webb or Webber? I'm forgetting what he's called, but of course he's going to enjoy they've done really good between the two of them in the last 12 months. I can see that continuing quite well. Of course, Delia Smith will have her two pen of in. I wonder if there would be any bets on us actually going out onto the pitch or on the PA system and shouting, "Let's be having you." She's probably too old in the tooth by now to do that. But I think Norwich will have a bit more nous, a bit more team spirit. Carrow Road will be. I think their form at Carrow Road will be. Will determine whether they stay up or not. Because when you're a promoted team, your home form is very, very important. I mean, when Burnley first came up a few years back, when Burnley came up in 2016, we had a great home record which got us over the line. I think we won one away match all season at Palace, and we stayed up by about 5 points. So the home form is going to be crucial for Norwich rather than the away. If they can pick up a few draws and the odd win here or there from Carrow Road, then they'll have done well to get that. But I think visiting teams will not enjoy going to Carrow Road, and I honestly think that they could actually upset one or two people, one or two of the more established teams this season, and certainly get big results there. And they're very capable on their day of doing it. So I think, due to the fact that I think they'll do well at home, I'm going to put Norwich City to finish 17th. So my bottom six are as follows: bottom Sheffield United, 19th Brighton, 18th Newcastle United, 17th Norwich, 16th Aston Villa, and 15th is Burnley. So there are all the predictions. If you all...
JB, can I just run through my bottom six? Cause I didn't run...
Yep, by all means.
So it's Brighton in 20th, Sheffield United 19th, 18th Crystal Palace, 17th Newcastle, 16th Norwich City, and 15th Burnley. JB, back to you.
Thanks, Russ. So so do you agree with the three of us? Have we got our predictions spot on, or have we got it completely and utterly wrong? Chris reckons Burnley are going to go down. I understand his reasons as to why. And we're going
I like the fact that we've all got different predictions as well. It would have been our top sort of 3 and 4, whatever, was pretty similar. But we've had teams all over the shop at this one, so that's quite good. We're interested to see who was the closest by the end of the season.
Indeed, and we'll have a video at the end of the season to reflect on how right and how wrong we might have been. But that's another day. So let me know. We want you guys certainly on Twitch at the moment. We're broadcasting live and we'll be on there for another 25 minutes. And of course, this will be uploaded to YouTube later. So anybody who's watching this on YouTube a bit later on, let me know let the three of us know in the comment section below, and let us know what your top 7 will be and the bottom 6 will be, and we'll see who's we'll be interested to see what you guys also think as well. Right, now we're going to touch on a couple of our clubs. Now, of course, Burnley is dear to mine and Chris's heart. We're going to save that until last, but we're just going to delve into the Championship for a wee bit, because Russ's team is obviously Leeds United, if you haven't noticed already, and I'm sure regular listeners will know that old Rusty supports Leeds. He's a big Leeds fan and goes to a lot of the games and watches them more or less week in, week out. They're going to be up there surely for pre-season favourites to be to win the Championship. So I'm going to come to you, Rusty, if I may, please. Are you very excited about Leeds' chances, and do you think they can right last season's wrongs right when they were leading the league and then faded away at the last in the playoffs? Do you think they can go one better and this time get automatic promotion, or do you think it'll be another season of what might have been? What do you think at the moment, so looking at the way things are going at the moment?
Well, JB, CW, and all listeners as well, very good evening once again. Looking at, before starting what I think is going to happen, I'll just run you through our bit of business that's happened this summer. So we've signed Morton Spencer from Sunderland for an undisclosed fee, gone straight into the under-23s. Same with Stuart McKinstry from Motherwell, Liam McCarron from Carlisle United, Rafa Majuka from Barcelona, Guille and more from Barcelona as well. And Alfie Hughes, I think he's gone into our under 17s, 16, 17s, I think, from Manchester United. Those are permanent acquisitions. The loan signings that we've made, we've brought back Jack Harrison from last season from Manchester City. We've brought back Jack Clark after he joined Tottenham Hotspur on a permanent deal. He's back on loan this campaign. We've also fetched in Ben White, which I'll touch upon in a moment, and Elder Costa in on loan. And particularly news regarding that Elder Costa transfer. He has signed a deal which will make him a permanent Leeds player at the end of the season, no matter what division Leeds United will be playing in. Leaving the club, we've got rid of J. Roy Gott and Louis Coyle on loan to Vitesse Arnhem and Fleetwood Town respectively. Also leaving the club, we've had quite a few outs as well. Caleb Ekiban, Paddy O'Connor, Jack Clark, as I mentioned, he's come back. Apple Alm, Malik Wilkes, Tyler Denton, Sam Dolby, Adi Sacco, Oriel Ray, Samuel Saiz, Alex Machuca, Hugo Diaz, Oliver Sarkic. They're all majority of them from the under-23 squad. And one notable absentee, which I'll probably touch upon as well, in to be reasons where I think he has left the club, is Pontus Jansson. But looking at the signings that we've made, I think we've made some shrewd acquisitions. Fetching Jack Harrison back, it looks fitter, stronger than last season, already scoring quite a lot of goals, getting quite a lot of assists in his pre-season games so far. Elder Costa is looking good, looking to be shaky sometimes, but he's dropping the shoulder to get by a couple of players. That's looking pretty exciting. Jack Clark's looking pretty much exciting as well. Ben White coming out from the back. I've really liked the look of Ben White this campaign. I feel like we are lacking another central defender, which I feel we need to strengthen in. Victor Orta, the sporting director, says our transfer business is 90% done. We're set to lose Bailey Peacock Farrell as well in the next, I think it would be 24, 48 hours, I would imagine, to Burnley for a fee reported to be around about £3.5 million there. So I feel like we'll be looking at another goalkeeper to come in, maybe as actors back up to Kiko Casilla, or come in and challenge Kiko, maybe even take over that number one spot as well. Before I touch on Kiko Casilla's performances from when he came in last season, Pontus Jansson, the reason why he left, fell out with the manager Marcelo Bielsa, which was a key acquisition at the start of the transfer window before, but everything else happened. We sorted out the deal to get Marcelo Bielsa in for the new season, so that's a really massive boost. Janssen fell out with him all over the Aston Villa debacle. If you remember, JB, when Matthias Klick ran through, pulled the ball in on the back of the net, and then we let Villa walk it through with Corgi down, even though Leeds didn't do anything against the rules. He went against Bielsa, just trying to tackle Dorman, stop him putting in the back of the net. Then a fallout from that moment, fell with a few of the players as well. But he's been back at Ellen Thorpe Arch yesterday, Janssen, to collect his stuff, because he went straight from holiday to Brentford. We were back there picking all this stuff up from Ellen Road and Thorpe Arch yesterday. So I feel like he could be a big miss at the back, but I feel we've got a shrewd acquisition in fetching Ben White. Seen a lot of players in pre-season. Matthias Bogus from the under-23s towards the end of last season. I think he's going to look good this time around. I feel like he's going to be one to watch this season to break through. Jamie Shackleton as well, which I didn't really mention as well. He'll look good towards the end of last season as well. Kiko Casilla, so far this season, I've looked and what I've seen, he is improved on those mistakes they were making last season. He's not coming rushing out to claim his ball anymore. He's coming and commanding his box, punching clear, coming when he needs to. There has been a couple of times in a couple of matches, mainly against Cagliari and Western City Wanderers, where I thought he could have come out and claimed the ball, where he hung back a little bit and the defenders had to get clear. So it looks like He's improving his game slightly. Still a bit of work to be done there. So I think if another solid goalkeeper comes in, somebody like a Joe Hart, Alex McCarthy, with a bit of Premier League experience and international experience behind them, could push him that a little bit step further and help him along. And he can help them along with him being a bit older than a couple of, with two of them I've mentioned. And I feel looking at the squad depth that we've got this season, or we've also got Ryan Edmondson, Kun Temenuskov, as well as in the striking department, Clark Dog, who's been involved in a lot of pre-season matches, Jordan Stevens, as well, Leif Davis, Pascal Struik, Robbie Gotts, Camel Mazak, another goalkeeper. All these players coming through seem to be gelling. It's all seem to be gelling into the Bielsa way of thinking. Last season, we had a lot of injuries. This season, we've had a few so far. Ayling, Shackleton, Forshaw picked up a bit of a knock recently as well. Tyler Roberts is out from back end of last season. Roof's out at the moment. So we're looking at going into the weekend's game with Patrick Bamford as the main striker up there. Hopefully he can prove the doubters wrong and stick off on a good run this season. I think if we can go off on a good run and stay up there, Bielsa will know where he needs to get out of this division now. The players who are there will know as well from having been there last season. Elder Costa coming in, he'll know what it's like to get out of this division as well, and he has done as champions with Wolves, which could bring a good solid partnership, especially with Barry Douglas down the left, or Emanali, or Pablo Hernandez on the left, him on the right, with Stuart Dallas, Luke Ayling down the right-hand flanks, right flank with Douglas and Harrison Hernandez down the left, or even Alioski down the left with Harrison or whatever. So we've got strength in all positions as well. I think we're going to have a good, strong season. I'm not going to say exact position where I think we're going to finish, but I'm hoping we can go one step further than last season and finish in the automatic promotion spots. But I'm not going to say my overall prediction for Leeds United this season. But I think we're going to have a good season. But I'm not going to tempt fate and say where we're going to finish. Because last season, I said we're going to finish in the top two quite comfortably, and we slowly drifted off towards the end of last season. I said this on another podcast. But this time around, I'm not going to predict where I think we're going to finish, but I think we're going to have another strong season and another top 10 finish. I think will be on the cards for Leeds United, but I'm not going to say what position I think the club will finish in this time around. But I just want to ask you a quick question, both of you a quick question actually. First of all, I'm going to come to you, CW. Looking at from an outsider's point of view with what Bielsa did last season, and with all the Spygate issues that happened last season as well, no one needs to be happy to get to the division. What did you make of Bielsa's first season in English football, and do you feel he's got what it takes, and having that one season under his belt to take Leeds to the next level? CW, I'll come to you first, and then the same question that I've just asked CW applies to you, JB, after CW. So Chris, over to you.
Well, you could certainly say his first season in English football was eventful. Spirit of the game, I think, was a phrase bandied about as well. But has he got what it takes to take Leeds up? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, you only just missed out last year, and that was because stuff fell apart at the back end of the season. That happens to teams sometimes, but the following season they generally learn from it and they do better. So I would fully expect Leeds to finish top 2 next season. Definitely challenge for the title. But yeah, I mean, they're certain for top 6 for me. I mean, they've got no real excuses. The squad's more or less the same. You've built on it a little bit, and Malaysia's going to be a little bit wiser to stuff that goes on this season. And yeah, I think he will have learnt a lot. Perhaps what you should and shouldn't do, whether it's part of the rules or not. But yeah, I would fully expect Leeds to be fighting for promotion next season. I'd be disappointed if they didn't. Whether they pass Burnley on the way up, we shall see. But yeah, I think Malaysia's got it in him. He certainly toes the line, and he showed that he can get a team motivated. So Yeah, I think they will. I think they'll do reasonably well. Top two would be my prediction, but top six is a certainty. I would be incredibly surprised if they weren't top six.
Cheers, CW, for your opinion then. JB, what is your opinion on Leeds? Do you think Bielsa's got what it takes to get us out of the division, and with the signings I've mentioned and stuff that I've mentioned in my bit there about Leeds United, do you think Bielsa's got what it takes to get Leeds United up, and do you feel that Leeds can get back to the top flight next at the end of the 2019-2020 campaign, which is, of course, I must point out, is our centenary campaign as well. We are 100 years old in October, this October, so I want to say a big happy birthday to Leeds United for then, but I'm sure we'll say that I've been nearer the time as well. But JB, do you think Leeds have got what it takes to get up, and do you think Bielsa's got what it takes and knows what it takes to get out of the Championship now, having that season last year under his belt?
Well, he's got a chance, that's for sure. But he's going to have tough competition. He's going to have healthy competition. You've got West Brom that are going to be fighting there. I think they'll surprise one or two people. I think they'll be there or thereabouts. Obviously, you can't discount Cardiff City under Neil Warnock. I mean, if he keeps the bulk of the side that he had last year, of course he's lost Camarasa back to Real Betis, and there's rumours that Palace or Burnley might sign him this season. I think Cardiff, if they keep the course, they've got a chance. You've got Fulham as well. Scott Parker did a great job, despite them being relegated last year. They saved a lot of pride and a lot of face, and got quite a number of positive results. So Leeds are not going to be without competition. You know, I think I do concur with what Chris says a little bit, because I think when you've missed out a couple of times, I mean, you've got to look at it. Took, you know, I mean, you've been out of the division since 2004, the top flight, and for a club of Leeds' stature, you think what they've achieved all those years ago under the likes of Howard Wilkinson, and going back to the 70s, 60s and 70s under Don Revie, or Don Revie or Revie or whatever. You know, a club with that sort of history shouldn't be languishing in the Championship. It should be a Premier League club. I mean, you look at Ellen Road, it's a nice ground. I do honestly think that they've got a chance, but as I said, you've got West Brom to face, Cardiff City, Fulham are going to be there or thereabouts. Derby County, you know, Philip Cocu's just got in there as manager. He won't have the same players as Frank Lampard, I would have thought, but I'm sure Mel Morris, his chairman there at Pride Park, will give him sufficient funds. So they're going to have very, very healthy and very tough competition, but Leeds have got a chance. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they finish top two. That is for sure. And it is, and I'm certainly in the opinion that they can finish top two. Whereabouts in the top two, I'm not quite sure, but as I said, Russ, it's going to be certainly healthy competition. Right, anyway, we're going to move on to Burnley in a second.
Thank you, JB.
Oh, thank you.
For your thoughts, and thank you, Chris, as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, before I move on to Burnley, and I'm sure myself and Chris have got to have a few choices. I'll say what I wanted to say on a video the other day. You may have seen it about the board. I've sort of past shouting and bawling about it now. There have been a lot of things about that. But before I go, we've had a message from Mike actually. It was an internet issue that's kept him being off the podcast, and he's had a very stressful night with it all. But he sends his apologies to everybody. Right, anyway, so Mike will obviously be joining us in the commentary box. Just before I touch on Burnley, the last thing we do, I just want to formally introduce Mike to our commentary team, and he will be joining myself, Chris and Russ as our alongside our commentary team. Also, I just want to also say that Matt Graham, aka Panini, will be our because we've got VAR coming in the Premier League this season. Matt Graham will be our VAR adjudicator throughout the course of the season. So I thought I'd better get that one in just to let you guys know, and YouTubers and Twitch listeners and etc. Right, final subject of the evening in this podcast, and well, it's about a club that's very, very dear to myself and to Chris's heart. We're going to talk Burnley. Obviously, everyone knows my opinion on the chairman, Mike Garlick. Everyone knows my opinion on the tight-fisted sod, and I don't mince my words at all on that. Also, questions have to be asked of Mike Rigg, and I'm sure Chris will bring that up in more detail. I said what I wanted to say on the video the other night. Obviously, the news that Tom Heaton has gone has shocked a lot of people around the town. I mean, you look at message boards like the Claret's Turf, for example, and one or two other bits. It is very, very, it is very, very hard to argue, and there are a few people that are pro Garlic who think, well, what are you complaining about? You've never had it so good, enjoy it. How can we? But then again, we can counteract that argument, but we want to improve a bit more. We want to kick on, and if we're fighting to stay in the division every other year, it's just not viable. I mean, yeah, I get the point. I did get a point of some people that Burnley's never going to be Barcelona. Burnley's never going to be like Manchester United and have money to spend unless we get a rich shaking like our Manchester City. But there are questions that are going to be asked about the transfer policy. Should we have held on and got 12 to 13 million for an international class goalkeeper captain like Tom Heaton? I think so. But I've said my piece on the thing, and I said it on a video. So I'm going to give Chris, and I know Chris has been chomping at the bit for 2 days now to get his £2 for Cross, and I think it's high time that Chris gave his opinion on it. And Chris, it is really sad times at the moment, and I think I can understand why you selected Burnley to be relegated from earlier on, but I'd like to get your opinion on the shenanigans of this transfer window. I know we brought J Rod and Eric Peters in, and they're both great players in their own right, but there's just not been enough of them coming through the door, and that's got to be a big cause for concern. And of course, Tom Heaton going, it's left a bit of taste in their mouth, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's to say the least. I mean, where do we start? I mean, we start at the end of last season, really, where the new contracts are being handed out, and from what I've been told, Tom Heaton was not first, and Nick Pope was handed a new contract first, which is why Tom Heaton then proceeded to turn his down, because, he's only single-handedly basically kept the club in the league, and he's the club captain. It's maddening to think that someone somewhere thought, Tom Heaton's kept us up. He's also our captain. Let's not offer him the new contracts that he deserves. Meanwhile, we've got Joe Hart on the bench earning £60,000 a week, not doing anything. Someone somewhere is not doing their job properly, and it's just Tom Heaton going. I mean, it was going to happen. Let's face it. Eventually, Nick Pope was going to be the future, but my worry is that he's coming off of a horrific shoulder injury, and when goalkeepers do their shoulders, it's it never properly heals, and it can recur quite easily. I mean, you look at Charlie Austin, not even a goalkeeper, keeps getting recurring shoulder injuries. Once you do your shoulder, it's a problem. Other goalkeepers, David James, David Seaman, both had problems with their shoulders. They did it once, it kept on rearing its ugly head afterwards, because unfortunately, you fling yourself to the ground like a lunatic. It takes a certain amount of crazy to stand in between the sticks and fling yourself at a ball that's travelling very fast. But yeah, it's the fact that our club we've sold our club captain, the guy who steadied the ship. We were dead and buried last season, but we took Joe Hart out on net. We put our captain back in. He steadied the ship. We went on a 10-game unbeaten run, and we stayed up because of Tom Heaton. And it baffles me that, one, we've let him go to a relegation rival, and two, for cheap. The guy, we should have been getting at least £10 million, bare minimum. He's an England international. It's people go, oh, he hasn't got many caps. He's been in the England team since we first got relegated with Sean Dyche back in 2015. You know, he got called up by was it Southgate? I can't remember. I think it might have been Roy Hodgson the first time round. But he got called up then, and has ever since, apart from he got injured one international thing, he's been part of the England setup for the last four years basically. So, you know, England internationals generally are quite expensive, but you know, we go on. Right, is it, or are we just stupid with our business? You know, every club around us are selling their players at modern prices, yet we're selling our first team players for cheap. You know, Tom Heaton, he was the first choice goalkeeper. We've sold him for £8 million. Yes, he was in the last year of his contract, but Tom Heaton, to me, guarantees survival. You know, the guy was pulling off wonder saves last season in the second half of the season after Christmas to keep us up. Is Nick Pope going to do the same? Or are we going to find out that he was a one-season wonder? It's a possibility. He might get injured again. You know, Joe Hart hasn't really got it anymore. And I don't know about this guy from Leeds. I haven't really watched him enough to give a fair judgment. But for £3.5 million, I mean, that's already half the budget from that, half the money we've made off of Tom Heaton gone. Then there's the rest of the team. Okay, so Jay Rodriguez, good signing, 2 years too late. Eric Peters, basically a straight swap for Stephen Ward. Even though it wasn't a swap, but you get the idea. It's a straight replacement for Stephen Ward. So we haven't bought another central midfielder, which, again, we've been screaming for the last 2 years, because if we get an injury, which, I mean, Stephen Defoe is made of glass, is going to happen. So we'll only have two central midfielders. Poor Jeff Hendrick gets all kinds of flack for being played out of position because we are light in the central midfield. You know, we need to do something about that. In terms of team, other than Dwight McNeil, there isn't any. We still haven't addressed it. We haven't addressed it for the last 3 years. In terms of strikers, I quite like the striker balance we've got, apart from, as I said, the lack of pace. I mean, Gerrard's not slow. Chris Wood, I must admit, Chris Wood's looked good in pre-season, but Stephen Fletcher looked good in pre-season, and that season all those years ago, that the pre-seasons can be very deceptive. It's, you know, I like our centre-back options as well. I think Tarks and Ben Mee, provided Ben Mee is not made captain. If Ben Mee is made captain, we're in all sorts of problems. Obviously, Ben Gibson is a great backup option, if not challenging for the first team. And I like the idea that Jimmy Dunn has come back. I don't know whether we've loaned him back out yet or not. And Kevin Long, good backups. Our centre-back options are good. Left back is fine. Right back, Phil Bardsley, I don't know how many seasons he's got left. This might be the last season he has with us. We'll see. But we could probably have done with an extra man there. But yeah, the transfer, we've bought two players. Sorry, we've bought a third. We've signed someone from Curzon Ashton, which ambitious. Yeah, there's something lacking. So then we get to Sean Dyche. I'm struggling to blame him because the communication. This is the thing that frustrates me the most. The communication between the fans and the club itself is, well, non-existent basically. It's all cloak and dagger. Nobody has a clue what's going on until it actually happens, and it's just kind of like, as fans, we're kind of panicking at this point. We're like, okay, so what are you doing? What's going on? Because we're going into the new season and haven't really done anything of note. You know, some people are up in arms. Oh, we beat Nice 6-1 yesterday. Great, good job, fantastic. Nice looked like they were putting in 10% effort and were playing their B team. Good job. That's a very deceptive game. I feel like I did mention the age problem. You know, the average age is the highest in the Premier League. That does make a difference because, you know, when it comes to the back end of the season, we already tail off badly as it is, and it's gradually getting worse as each season goes by. And it's the lack of transfer activity goes to the top. Mike Rigg, I want to blame him. I really do, but I don't know whether I can because, again, I don't have a full picture here because the club isn't telling us anything. All they keep turning around is using, oh, it's a difficult market. It's only difficult if you're not willing to spend the cash, Garlic. Like, seriously. Have you not learned from the last sort of... This whole time we've been in the Premier League, looking around at the teams around us, Fulham spent hundreds of millions. Yeah, sure, they went down. But, you know, it's becoming sort of mandatory. You need to shell out every summer window if you want to remain competitive. You look at Aston Villa reinforcing left, right and centre. They basically brought themselves a new 11. You know, Sheffield United doing the same. You know, teams around us are doing tons of business, and here we are sitting at the bottom of the spend, bottom of the money spent chart again. You know, because we've bought 2 players for, you know, we've barely spent. I don't think we've spent £20 million. Everyone else is spending 100 million here and there. And teams that don't need to, or the teams at the very top, you know, Manchester City already have what they need. They're not going to spend much money, but us, oh no, it's fine. The squad's fine. It's because Mike Garlick wants to make as much money as bloody possible, and I'm kind of sick of it at this point. And this is where I'm going to get a little bit ranty, right? You'll have to bear with me. I'm not going to shout because everyone in my house has gone to bed, and I don't want them getting annoyed because I'm shouting Garlic at the top of my lungs.
Well, just you say what you feel. You can swear. It's a podcast. We're after the watershed. You do what you want, Chris.
Don't worry. I'm not gonna. I'm hopefully not gonna swear. But it's.
If you do, we don't hold it against you. Carry on.
This is the thing, right? Now, as a guy who comes to Burnley matches from Essex, £100 a game, right? I'm going to struggle to justify doing that this season, unless we have some worldy start or whatever, or we do some business between now and the end of the window, which is, 7 days? Because it's 1st of August when I'm recording this. It's Mike Garlick right now. I put him in the same boat as Mike Ashley. He is sitting there at the top, spending as little money as possible to keep us in the league so he can make as much money off the TV revenue, you know. Last season, and the season before that, since the new TV deal, the club would have still made a profit had we been playing at empty stadiums. So I could ask why the ticket price is still so high, you know. £35, and you can't even see through the flipping tunnel. The Arsenal game, you'll recall, John. You know, the view we had was terrible. Some people say, oh, why'd you buy the tickets? Why are they £35? You know, why are we still paying, Burnley as a town? The unemployment rate is pretty high. Not its own fault. There's nothing there. There's nothing there at all. The industry that was there, the coal industry and the textiles industry, gone. The only thing that's left is a flipping football club. And everyone around there, the income rate is far too low. Yet you're still charging £35 a ticket, you know. And what we watch is drab football. We watch a team that's underinvested because the guys are happy to take the money from the team. Dribble a little bit down, you know. Just dribble enough money down. Oh, look, we've done something in the transfer window. Look, we've got you Jay Rodriguez, as you've been clamouring for, you know. Oh, we've signed another left back because Stephen Ward's left. You know, he's doing the bare minimum to get by and keep us in the league. If we finish 17th every year, he'd be laughing his way to the bank, and that is what frustrates the hell out of me. Because I just don't feel like he cares enough. He just doesn't. He's making all the money, ham over fist, you know. The TV deal has turned, for me, the bottom 10 of the Premier League into this business race. You're all there to make money and keep your businesses afloat. That's it. If you're above 10th, you're looking into the Europa League sort of door. You know, your Leicesters, your Wolves, your Evertons. They're not fussed about bottom half of the table. They might end up in it because they have a tough season, but they're never going to be looking at the relegation zone and fearing for their economic lives, because if they do, they then throw the checkbook at it. You know, because they're worried, you know, they genuinely do get scared, and suddenly they're like, oh crap, we've got to do something about this. Greatest opportunity but basically in the club's history, last season, when we had the lure of European, you know, the squad should have been expanded, and we should have brought in some quality so we could fight on both fronts. Get to the group stage. The amount of money we would have made purely through being in the Europa League proper would have been ridiculous. And this, it also baffles me. Aim higher. You know, 17th. There's a lot of money 17th, but think of what's above.
You know, you finished 12th. You finished 10th. Look, the amount of money we would have made, we would have made from finishing 7th that year. God, the amount of money. What has he reinvested from that? What have we done? We've thrown money at Joe Hart to sit on the bench. And yeah, that's it really. We bought Ben Gibson, but we haven't really given him a chance. We bought Vidra, not using him either. You know, what are we doing? Is there any sense of direction at the club, or are we just trying to, you know, are we just making it up as we go along? Is there an actual long-term plan? Because the excuse of being in the Europa League this year, gone. So if we screw up, oh, you can't pull the Europa League excuse on us. There's also the excuse about training grounds finished, so we're not spending money on that anymore. So that excuse for not having any money, that's also gone. You know, he's out of excuses. Why is he not strengthening the squad? We need to get the squad younger. It needs to be pacier. Because Arsenal, the last game of the season last year, Arsenal, they threw a B team out, but it was full of pace and it ruined us. They exposed us, and every single team is going to be like that next season. They know exactly how we're going to play. We're going to lump it long. We're going to defend deep. We're just going to, you know, we're going to be a difficult side to try and beat. Well, once they get a goal, we're going to struggle. I mean, you know, we don't score a lot of goals. We're averaging maybe 2 a game. I think the match of the day average was 1.89 or something. So if the opposition scores, there's a good chance they're going to get the 3 points or minimum of a point. So Mike Garlick, I don't want to blame Mike Rigg because I feel like his hands are tied just as much as flipping Sean Dyche's. You know, he's not invested enough. And for me, I want to look at. There's a lot of fans that turn around to me and say, "Oh, you should be happy with what you got. This is the best Burnley have ever been for a long, long time since the '60s." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not being funny. I don't want to be sat in this endless cycle of just trying to stay up the skin of your teeth. You know, it's stressful fighting relegation for fans. You know, it's really stressful. You get put through the mill every damn week. You know, and it's not like we go for a cup run either. We just in this endless cycle of get dumped out of the cups early on because we want to focus on." And then you end up finishing 17th, and then bare minimum in the transfer window again. It's just this endless bloody cycle that Mike Garlick has got us in because he doesn't want to spend the money. And he's so worried. He's so scared to even remotely gamble even slightly. He's losing out on getting even more money because he's playing it too safe. Because, you know, 17th, that's fine. It's, you know, if we finish 10th every year, dude would be laughing to the bank and he'd be able to give us a little bit more money. You know, he'd be able to invest a little bit more. But no, he's just going to do that. And prices haven't gone down. The shirt prices are only going up. The stupid sponsorship that we've got this year, by the way, is just another stupid thing that this club is doing. And also the cricket field stand, it's making me laugh. You've got half the seats plastic and the other half wooden. At least do the, you know, spend some there. We know it's there, and you're not reinvesting it. And when it comes to flipping December time, when we're battling relegation and the club are going, we need to spend some money in January, are you going to do anything? Are you actually going to do anything, Mike? Because quite frankly, I don't feel like you are. And like I said earlier with my prediction, the magic of what Sean Dyche has been doing the last couple of years, keeping us up on what is a shoestring budget because the owner won't give us the investment we need, it's going to stop. And when it does stop, we're knackered because the moment we drop into the Championship, you seriously think stay put? Because I reckon Sean Dyche would walk, that would be the first thing that happens. Then all the good players would go, and then it's a slippery slope. Once you fall out, once all those players go, and the manager goes, it doesn't matter what your infrastructure is like. You look at the state of the Championship. Practically all of them, bar 3, have been in the Premier League. Yeah, you know, you look at Sunderland for God's sake. They've got some of the best facilities around League One. You know. You could end up like Portsmouth, slip all the way down into League Two, only just recovering after years. This stupid idea that football is a business is ruining clubs. And for me, this transfer window is a perfect example. He's wanted to make a profit. It works the same way for the richer clubs. You look at how Stan Kroenke's running Arsenal, making the bare minimum to make the top, to try and get the top 4. Because if he does get top 4, he's quids in. It's exactly the same down here, only on a slightly smaller scale. Quid's in if you do the bare minimum, and if you can just about scrape it, oh mate, walk into the bank with tons of money. That's what I view it. Mike Garlick's just a greedy bugger, and he doesn't care enough. He talks a lot of talk about investing and backing the manager, but he doesn't do enough. Going on about difficult market and all that. No, it's just that you're not willing to, because their prices have gone up over the years. That's how inflation works, my friend. You're a businessman. You should know this. But, you know, if you want to go ahead and sell Tom Heaton for pennies and then be surprised when teams turn around and say, oh, we want 15, 16 million for a half-decent player, shock. He needs to get with the times. You know, players are going to cost quite a lot of money these days if they're any good. You know, if you want to dip around in the Championship and try and get quality out of there, yeah, sure, it's cheaper, but it doesn't guarantee results. So if Garlick's shot in his spine this week, he's going to go out there and get what we need. We need a couple of midfielders. We need another right back. Just get 3 players. That's all we need. All we need is 3 players. That'll be enough. You know, we might get around. If Nick Pope comes off as good as he was a few seasons ago, we might be all right. But Garlick's he's a toxic man, and he's just as bad as Mike Ashley. It's only because we're little old Burnley and we're not a massive side like Newcastle. Mike Ashley's taking all the heat right now. If you flipped it the other way around and Mike Ashley was in charge of Burnley and Mike Garlick was in charge of Newcastle, you would damn well know the Newcastle fans would be exactly the same. It's no different. It's just a different scale. And for me, I'm really going to motivation to go to a match this season because I don't want to give a penny to that greedy bastard in charge. I've sworn that's happened. Oh no, yeah, he's a greedy such and such, and he does something in this next week, and I'm not going to hold my breath over it. So that's my rant over it. Went off on a bit of a tangent, but there you go. That's just my thoughts. I don't know about you, John. I think you aired your opinions in a video a few days ago, but the Tom Heaton one tipped me over the edge. You know, the guy was our club captain and he single-handedly kept us up last year. And how do we repay him? We don't give him a new contract. We hand it to the backup in Nick Pope. And no wonder he wouldn't sign a new contract. I would have been offended if I was in our position, if I was in his position. I've just saved the club. I'm the club captain and they haven't offered me the first new contract. I'm obviously not wanted here, so I'm off. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. I don't know about you.
I've got to agree. The whole thing is a shambles. I think Tom wanted a longer contract with us. I don't think it was about the money, I believe. It was about the length of contract. We were only prepared to give him 1 year, where Villa was prepared to give him 2 years. And I think he had another 2 years with us, potentially. You know, people seem to forget a goalkeeper shell-off is quite a different proposition to an outfield player. Because you look at people like Peter Shilton and David Seaman, they were playing at the top level into their 40s. Tom Heaton had another 2 good years at Burnley ahead of him. If our board had just given him a longer contract and gave him assurances. Now I understand why Nick Pope has signed a new deal, because he's going to be the future. He was, you know, he did it with, you know, he was going to be our number one regardless whether, you know, in the future, you know, whether it was this season or 2 years down the line when Tom would have left anyway, because I would have think, you know, if he'd have signed another 2 years, I think that would have been it. I don't begrudge Tom Heaton a move. You know, he's entitled to go wherever he wants, and you know he's given great service to the club. And I'm more angry at Mike Garlick, and I think I agree with you that he's as bad. I think he is as bad an owner or chairman or whatever as Mike Ashley is up at Newcastle. You know, I can understand that, and yeah, I think most people would feel the same if it was flipped the other way around, that Ashley was running our club and Garlick was running their club, and the whole thing I find absolutely amazing. I just think when you sell the family silver like the club captains for a mere £8 million, Aston Villa must have thought yesterday, for most of that day yesterday, all their Christmases, New Year's, birthdays, New Year's Eves had all rolled into one, because that is the can I just confirm that it's nothing against you, Mike. It's the fact that our chairman's called Mike Garlick, and he's doing a very poor job of things at Burnley. I agree with you, of course, Chris, on the ticket prices. I think they're too much, especially in a town like Burnley where it's working class There's a lot of unemployment down there. All the cotton mills have shut down years ago. There's not much growth industry in Burnley. The only industries in there are office blocks and things like that, and even then they're not even occupied.
I just want to mention he whinges a lot about the attendance. People whinge a lot about the attendance, that average attendance being 12,000-13,000. What do you expect when there's no jobs? About this was I was ranting a bit too much, but if you lowered the ticket prices, you'd sell out Turf Moor every week, and he'd make more money. But he doesn't. He just leaves it as it is. Oh, I can just keep charging that. People will still buy it. He wonders why people, will stay at home and watch it on Sky Sports, because Sky Sports is better affordable in the long run, But it just annoys the hell out of me, and I think he's very much out of touch with the town. So the ticket price is definitely an issue. And with Tom Heaton, I think if I personally would have also. I forgot to add it. I would have preferred him stay on another season and leave on a free transfer than him leave at all this season. I think I would have preferred that, because it would have been him leaving on his own terms, and then obviously Pope would have naturally taken his spot. But he wanted to play first team football this year. And good luck to. I hold nothing against Tom Heaton. He wants to be guaranteed first team football, and he will get that at Aston Villa. Aston Villa have got one hell of a player for one hell of a price, but the price is down to the bloke in charge. Oh, I'll just take 8 million. That's all I need. Idiot.
Agreed. But yeah, on the ticket thing, I think he could lower the prices, and also it's not going to attract the next generation of supporters if they're going to price them out. I think if you can get a quick, there's good offers. If you want to get the kids involved, they're going to be the next generation of Burnley fans. I think they should do a quiz for £1. Then you fill up the ground. Okay, it's going to be full of a few, it's going to be quite a lot of kids. But then you've got the next generation coming in and actually gaining an interest in the club. I think that's a good scheme that they could go down. Also, they could lower ticket prices for certain Category B games to £15 or something like that, £20. To say like a game against Norwich or West Ham, for example, and get the people in through there. There's also been very much on social media. There's been a lot of mix-up with the season ticket holders not getting their season tickets as quickly as they should have done. There's been quite a mix-up with that. So the whole summer, really, from a football club point of view at Burnley, has been a complete shambles. And I do agree that Mike Garlick has lost touch with Burnley as a town. He doesn't spend enough time at the club. He spends too much time down in London looking after his business. I understand he's a businessman. I appreciate that he's made his money and he's done well for himself, and good, I've nothing against the bloke personally, but as a chairman he just doesn't know the going rate. And I think if he'd have held out for £12 million, I wouldn't have kicked up much of a stink about it, and would have, £12 million would have been right. But I think they've gone about this all wrong, and I know I've got them down to finish 15th, but if they don't improve the squad, then I could probably see your way of thinking, Chris, and stay and their stay in the division might just only last 4 seasons. We need to have a bloody good last week of the window, otherwise it's all gone doom and gloom. There's no communication between the hierarchy and the fans. I feel for a club that is supposed to have the community at its heart, I think that's certainly been cut off. And Mike Garlick's just an absolute fucking prick, and I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to mince my words easy. We've touched on that. It's all back. Mike Garlick, he's making a profit, and he's going to come to a point where Sean Dyche is going to turn around, as Chris Whiteman has quite rightly pointed out, and say, right, that's it, I'm off. And nobody will blame Sean Dyche at all for that. No Burnley fan worth their salt would blame Sean Dyche for that.
He could do that tomorrow and nobody would be upset with him, because we all know what he's working with. It's just, I get the feeling this is what Martin O'Neill was probably dealing with when he was at Aston Villa, and he was trying to fight to get into the top 4, banging on the door, going, "I need this investment. Otherwise, we're going to go backwards and not getting it. And if Aston Villa fans didn't really blame him for walking back then. They still don't blame him now because the owner that he was having disagreements with has sold up and moved on now. But if Sean Dyche walked tomorrow, one, that would cause riots because I think there's a lot of the club as a whole in terms of the fan base back the hell out of Dyche in most cases. I know there's a certain person called Kyle who was saying Dyche out last year. Generally speaking, there's a lot of people who wouldn't blame Dyche, and they would have massive problems if Dyche walked because of that. And the glare would certainly turn on Mike Garlick. I know that for a fact, but it's really hard for me to feel optimistic, and especially hard for me to even say that I want to go to a match next year. Because for me, like I said, to go to a Burnley match, it costs best part of £100. Ticket prices, fuel. I normally buy a shirt and a programme as well. I just don't have this. I don't want to do that this year because the money's going straight into Mike Garlick's pocket and not into the team. The whole reason I do that normally is because I'm giving money to the team. But the way Mike Garlick is running this club, it's just going into his back pocket, and he doesn't give a damn. And I'm not doing it again until he decides to actually show a little bit of ambition.
I've just got a quick thing here before about Burnley. I feel sorry for you two as fans for having to put away chairman like that.
Actually, I was going to bring you in next, so you beat me to it. So go on, you can have your opinion as well. So I was going to bring you in anyway, but carry on.
Yeah, I feel sorry for the fans like you and Chris Wyman. I feel like Mike Garlick and Rig is not doing enough to back Sean Dyche. Dyche is probably saying we need 4 or 5 quality players to strengthen the squad and help us progress to that next level in the table. Otherwise, we're going to go backwards. That's one of the reasons why I've put you down in 15th from where you finished last season. I think you're going to slowly drift down the table with investing enough quality players into the team and everything. And I feel like that, like you guys have said, Sean Dyche could wake up tomorrow, go into the club, say to the players, right, I'm off, lads. It's nothing you've done. It's something that I've had a long hard think about, and I think his best interests in the club goes to my goal and my rig and just say, right, here you go, lads. My resignation's there, and I think Burnley fans, you two included, will come out and thank Sean for what he's done over the past few years he's been at the football club, and what fantastic football you've had, considering the shoestring budget he's had to work on as well in especially these past couple of seasons. And I feel you need an extra few bodies in the side to replace the players who you've let go and the players who have retired and moved on to pastures new. And I've got somebody, been speaking to a couple of people as well tonight who have not listened to the podcast live, but I'll send them a link so they can listen to it after. One of them has sent me their top 7 and the bottom 6 as well. He's gone for the top 7. He's gone with City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, Wolves, Man United. That's 1 to 7. And in the other way, bottom, Sheffield United, Norwich 19th, Brighton 18th, 17th, Newcastle, 16th, Burnley, 15th, Villa, and he's even given a 14th spot prediction, and he says that will be Southampton. So, and he's called Oh No, and he's in one of the football chat rooms on the website, which I watch some matches on if they're not on my TV, which I've got as well. So that's his predictions for the Premier League top 7 and bottom 7 or whatever you want to for the season. So there we go, guys. Just thought I'd add that bit in as well.
Thank
Got
you,
another
Ross.
prediction there for you.
Thank you, Ross. And just to stay on that feed, Mike has just been messaging us there. He's gone for City to finish top. He's gone for Arsenal, unsurprisingly, second. Although I think there are better teams arguably than Arsenal. But he's going to say that. He's biased. And why not? Liverpool third, like me. Tottenham completing the top four. Manchester United to finish fifth. And Chelsea to finish sixth. Now, that's interesting. But so that's his top six. Mike, if you could send us your bottom six as well from send us your bottom six from 20th up to 15th. That would be fantastic, please. Before we go, I just want to go back to Burnley. There are a lot of issues about, and the next week's going to be a great big week because you look at the start of our season as well, lads. We've got Southampton a week on Saturday, and then we've got to play, I think it's Chelsea next, and then, is it Chelsea? No, it might be Chelsea yet, and, no, it's not Chelsea. No, it's Arsenal, sorry, and then we've got Liverpool to finish the month. And I'm a bit worried about that. We need to get a positive result on the first day of the season against Southampton, otherwise August could be a very poor month. September looks a bit promising. Obviously, we've got Villa in that month as well. But if we can get 3 points against Southampton, it takes the pressure off Arsenal. But the Arsenal match. But I'm very, very worried at the moment. I mean, I've obviously predicted us to finish 15th, but let's not forget that Burnley actually finished 15th last season. But we were dead and buried at Christmas. We were at 6 points from safety at one point, so we worked a miracle.
Yeah, but we pulled the goalkeeper off the bench and kept 10 clean sheets in a row. We're not going to have that this year.
No, but we still got one half of that, Dwight McNeil, and he was another reason why we stayed up as well. So, and of course Barnes and Wood. I think those people can't be ignored as well. But I honestly think we need to strengthen. If we can strengthen in the midfield, then it might not be as bad a season as we might make. But if Mike Gallagher can get 30-40 million for Sean, then that could make all the difference in the end. Anyway, thank you very much for that. And if you got an opinion on Bert, and if you've all got an opinion
Harni's gone for the 3 promoted teams to go straight back down again, with Sheffield United bottom, Norwich 19th, Villa 18th, Southampton 17th. Nobody, to be fair, I don't think any of us actually mentioned Southampton at all in our bottom 6, which might surprise a few people. To be fair, I mean, I did think about them.
Well, not really.
The new manager that came in did a decent job last year, didn't he? So maybe that's. Plus, he's got Danny Ings, and if he's fully fit, Charlie Austin, whether he still features in their plans or not, we'll see. But yeah, it's fair enough. He's still got them staying up. So, along with Brighton 16th, and another person has gone for. Am I the only person who thinks Burnley is going to get relegated here? What is this? Okay. Well, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh. I don't know, but yeah, he's gone Burnley 15th as well. But yeah, it's an interesting prediction there, Harni. It's a nice one, I guess. I still think you're a little bit optimistic with Arsenal finishing second, but hey, we can. I wish I could be that optimistic about my own team, to be fair. But yeah, that's Mike's other prediction, I guess.
Indeed.
We'll talk about that soon, of course.
Indeed. Mike. Well, he's. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, I thought he was Southampton, but you look at the manager there, Ralph Husenhurdle, and I think he's a very good manager. And I think he'll with a full summer behind him now and a full pre-season, I think you'll see Southampton finish definitely mid-table out of danger. Anyway, that's hasn't the time fly, guys? Hasn't the time flown? We've had 2 hours and 38 minutes of this fantastic podcast, and we're going to be loving you and leaving you all this fine evening. Don't forget, in about 20 minutes time, this particular podcast will be uploaded to YouTube, so all the YouTube listeners who haven't got Twitch, you'll be able to listen to all that info, or you could just skip to the bits you want to hear, and vice versa. I'm sure you all want to hear what our predictions are, and then if you've got your views on the top 6 or the bottom 6, let us all know in the comment section below. And don't, as I say,
if you're feeling brave, post an entire table.
Yes, indeed. We would have done it ourselves, actually, guys, but we just didn't have the time or the inclination to do that. So basically, that's it from us. And of course, Mike has been on texting as well. He reckons Newcastle will finish 14th. So there we are. That's our predictions and our views on Leeds and Burnley. Obviously, Rusty's our resident Leeds fan, and of course, Chris and I are Burnley fans. Let me just remind you, the start of the season begins at the weekend. We'll have Nottingham Forest against West Bromwich Albion at 5:30 in the Championship. We're not sure who's going to be commentating on it. We'll let you know in due course. Then I'll be in the commentary box for the clash at Wembley. The traditional, or it used to be the traditional curtain raiser to the new season, the McDonald's FA Community Shield, was called charity, but it's now community. McDonald's Community Shield. That's between the domestic treble winners Manchester City, and of course European champions Liverpool, and that will be live with me from 2:45 at Wembley. Kick-off for that one, 3 o'clock, and then a week on Saturday, the big one, the big kick-off, the massive kick-off. The Premier League will return, and you'll be able to hear myself, Chris, Rusty and Harni across the season commentating on the games. You'll be able to hear from Mike during the season as well, as he makes his debut on our channels. We're also going to have cup football. We're going to cover certain games from the Carabao Cup during the first half of the season, selected Champions League, big Champions League matches throughout the season. We're going to cover all the big finals. The FA Cup in January is always a great event for us to cover. We usually try and cover 3 games around from that, 3 to 4 matches around from that. So plenty of great football, and of course all the finals and all the action that matters. And we'll be, of course, as Chris pointed out, we will look at potentially doing a commentary on maybe that grudge match between Sheffield United and West Ham United, considering all those problems, of course, all those years ago with Carlos Tevez and the like. Anyway, thank you very much for everybody that's watched live on Twitch the last 2.5 to 3 hours almost. Hope you very much enjoyed it. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, we're nearly at 600 subscribers, by the way, guys. So that would be fantastic if we could get up to 600. Maybe get to 750 by Christmas. That would be a nice little target for us to aim for. Don't forget, the first couple of weeks, all matches will be live on Twitch, and then after August the 28th or 29th or whatever, when the YouTube ban is lifted for the live streaming, we'll be back full time on YouTube. So I want to say thank you to Chris and thank you to Russ, and well, let's all say good night. Anyway, good night to everybody. Thank you very much, Chris and Russ, and thank you for joining me. Thank you to Mike. I'm sorry that you couldn't come on, but so you'll be hearing from Mike during the season, so Mike's there as well. So good night from me and good night from Chris.
Gotta say, gents, it's been a pleasure. Even if Mike couldn't join us via voice, it's been a fun evening discussing the upcoming season. So I wish everyone's team the best, because I'm gonna need some well wishes, because I think we're gonna need it. But it's been a pleasure, gents. Thank you very much.
And a very good evening to you all. Thank you very much for joining us all this evening. I've enjoyed it. Thank you to JB and to Chris for your input on the lead segment when he asked you the question there. Thank you to Matt for popping on the chat feed this evening. Hopefully we'll get you on the microphone very, very soon on the channel. So stay tuned to hear from Mike. And stay tuned to hear from me throughout the season. I'm unavailable for the first couple of weeks of the season, but hopefully once the season starts up and running, I'll be around to get things sorted. So until then, until I speak again, take care, be well, and be safe. Goodbye, folks.
Good night, everybody. And the final word from me. I echo what the other two say. We wish every team in all the domestic leagues all over the UK the very best. And you know, we've only got an handful of prizes to win. I'd love to see Burnley win a FA Cup, but it's wishful thinking. But regardless of what happens, let's all have a good season. And of course, there's the European Championships coming up, and of course, the four of us will be all over that next summer as well. So we'll be doing a lot of football this year, and hopefully we'll break the record for live matches throughout the season, which stands at about 73, 74 matches in one season. That also includes whether we've done a European Championships or a Premier League or a World Cup even. So we're hoping to hit over 100 commentaries this season, and myself, Chris, Russ, and new signing Mike will be all over the football spectrum to bring you the very best in commentary, of course. So that is about it from us. As I said, Russ and Chris have said good night. It's time for me to say good night. Thank you very much for joining us live for the last 2 3/4 hours, and we'll see you again at the weekend, where we'll have, as I say, on Saturday and Sunday we'll have live action, and of course we'll keep you up to date with score flashes from the first Ashes Test match between England and Australia too. But from me, JB, and from the rest of the crew, have a fantastic evening. Enjoy your evening, and it'll be up on YouTube within 15 minutes of this video coming off air. And see you all very, very soon, and we can't wait to see you all again on Saturday. Can't wait now for the start of the season. It's going to be great. So from me, JB, from Chris, and from Russ, and of course Mike, who's unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, it's good night from us all, and we wish you all very well for the season. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and one thing I must say before I go, if you want notifications on any future videos that come up on YouTube, whether it's live or just recorded stuff sometimes that I do, hit that notification button. You'll get notified straight away of any fresh video that comes up. Okay, right, from me and the rest of the gang, it's been a privilege bringing it to you. It's now midnight, and it's time for us all to hit the whole sack and have 40 winks. I think we've heard it. So from all of us here, from me as well, take care. Good night.